Chapter 1071. Sui smiled faintly and did not say anything. In fact, other than not being afraid of the Big Dipper sect, he was also not as afraid of them as Shang Wanchen and Shui Yuechan thought. I'm leaving now. See you again. Sui did not stay any longer. He waved his hand and left. Shang Wanchen and Shui Yuechan scanned the battlefield once more. Their eyes flickered and they quickly left the place. Just as Shang Wanchen had expected, the nine-star city was in an uproar. On the 10 arenas in the square, the scene that appeared on the light screen caused countless spectators to cry out in surprise. Sui is really in the original Void Realm. He's so powerful. There were 8 people from the Big Dipper sect. He killed them all with one palm strike. His strength is really terrifying. Hong Jianxiu is also dead. He didn't even have the chance to escape from Sui. This young man is really amazing. In the future, who in this world will be able to defeat him? Gimdeo sect, Green Sanctuary sect, 7-star Sword School, Sunblaze sect. It's not surprising that they lost. That's right. Even the young sect master of the Big Dipper sect was killed. Those people from the third-rate forces are just sending themselves to death to Sui. I don't know where the Balwang sect came from. He has such a terrifying disciple. He's really bold. He didn't even let the people from the Big Dipper sect go. Similar discussions could be heard everywhere in the square. Everyone was shocked by the power that Sui had displayed. That young man did not use many martial skills and easily killed the entire group of people from the Big Dipper sect without any hesitation at all. His murderous and ferocious intent made people unconsciously feel a chill run down their spines. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. The reputation of the Balwang sect also skyrocketed after this incident. Bastard! While everyone was discussing fervently, an old man on the spectator's stand cursed loudly and slammed his palm on the armrest of his seat. With a boom, the entire seat was smashed into fine powder and the entire ground shook a few times. This old man was Elder Wu from the Tiangang sect. His face was steely green, and his usually calm face was now filled with uncontrollable rage. This scene was naturally seen by many onlookers in the square. The experts of the Heavenly Dipper sect are enraged. I'm afraid they will attack. That Sui might be in danger. The Heavenly Dipper sect will not let him off. They will definitely send experts to guard the mystic realm. Once the conference is over, Sui will be in big trouble. I wonder if an expert will step forward to protect him. Otherwise, an Origin Void Stage youngster would never be able to defeat a second-rate faction. Seeing Elder Wu fly into a rage, many of the people below began to whisper softly. At this moment, many people began to worry about Sui, afraid that the youngster would really die in the hands of the Heavenly Dipper sect. Right now, only the experts of the other factions in the Alliance would have a chance to protect Sui. Moreover, the person who stepped forward might have to be one of the 3 major factions. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. If we don't kill this youngster, how can the Heavenly Dipper sect establish itself in the Chaos region? Elder Wu smashed the chair with his palm and roared furiously. The fat on his face was trembling, and his eyes were as wide as copper bells. 8 disciples, a total of 8 outstanding disciples, were killed in such a short period of time. Most importantly, the young master of the Heavenly Dipper sect, Hong Jianxiu, was among them. Once this matter was investigated by the sect master, as the leader of this alliance conference, Elder Wu would not be able to absolve himself from the blame and would definitely be punished. The alliance conference is a place where life and death are determined by fate. The disciples were not strong enough and wanted to kill, but were killed instead. Now, the elders are making a fuss here. Where's the decency? At this moment, a cold snort was heard. It came from the green-robed elder from the Blood Sun sect. He glanced at Elder Wu and sneered. Elder Bai, I really can't take this lying down. Elder Wu did not dare to be presumptuous in front of Elder Bai. He immediately bowed and said sorrowfully, You can't blame others for your disciples' failure to live up to expectations. As an elder, you don't even have this bit of composure. How did you get your cultivation? Elder Bai saw Elder Wu's respectful attitude, and his tone relaxed a little. However, his words were not polite at all. He continued, however, an eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. At the very most, you can go and block Su-Yi outside the mystic realm. He is just an origin void realm brat. He can't do anything. However, I heard that he has a few origin emperors around him, and they're not weak. However, this is nothing to the Heavenly Dipper sect. I just don't know if there will be others who will interfere in this matter. At the end of his words, Elder Bai's gaze shifted and swept across Elder Tang and Elder Xie who were beside him. When Elder Wu heard these words, he was actually extremely dissatisfied. He really wanted to shout at Elder Bai, "If the one who dies is a disciple of the Blood Sun sect, show me your composure." However, under the suppression of absolute strength, Elder Wu did not dare to refute at all. Su-Yi came from the central region. He was originally a disciple of the Shunjian Gate. In order to avoid the Sacred Mountain, he came to the Chaos region to settle down. It is better for the Nine Stars Valley not to get involved in this matter to prevent any mistakes in the future. In response to Elder Bai's words, the black-robed Elder Tang shook his head gently and said, when the red-robed Elder Xie from the Green Cloud Hall heard this, he did not say anything. He just fell into silence. No one knew what he was thinking. In fact, the people from the three first-rate forces had a strong desire to cherish Su-Yi's talent at the beginning. If they were able to recruit such a heaven-defying talent into their sect, he would definitely become a powerhouse that could suppress a region in the future. They would also be able to enjoy the glory of it. However, later on, everyone knew that Su-Yi came from the central region and was a disciple of the Xinjiang Gate. Moreover, there was an irreconcilable hatred between him and the Sacred Mountain. In this way, if anyone wanted to protect him, they would have to be more cautious. It was very difficult for the Sacred Mountain to step into the Chaos region. However, this did not mean that they did not have the strength to do so. Once the Sacred Mountain listed Su-Yi as a must-kill, they would pay a huge price to kill him. When that time came, there would be endless trouble. This kind of trouble was not something the three first-rate forces were willing to bear. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse for this kid to come to the Chaos region. Elder Xie sighed softly and muttered to himself in a voice that was difficult for outsiders to hear. It was precisely because they did not know if it was a blessing or a curse that the people of the Alliance did not revoke Su-Yi's qualification to participate in the Great Spirit's secret realm. Instead, they allowed him to enter the secret realm of ominous spirits for the second round of the test. To a certain extent, the three first-rate forces were also observing. They wanted to see more from Su-Yi to determine if it was worth taking the risk for him. This kid is really good. He is decisive and killing and has no compassion for his enemies. In the crowd, a middle-aged man in a white robe stood. An invisible aura spread out, causing many people around him to be naturally isolated from a certain range. This made the middle-aged man look as if he was in an independent space. This was the person that Elder Xie had called Shangguan Kid earlier. The three first-rate forces were very polite to him. The man with the surname Shangguan looked away from the light screen. The image there had been destroyed, and he could no longer see Su-Yi's face. However, he was still touched and was extremely surprised by the young man. Let's wait and see. If necessary, I'll give him a hand, the middle-aged man murmured. He felt that if the Big Dipper sect attacked him, he could probably help a little. For him, some things were just a piece of cake. This kid is starting to cause trouble again. In another part of the crowd, Merciless West, Su Xiaoshui, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Ghost Emperor, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian were gathered. Beside them were Ji Tianfu of the Xinjian sect, Elder Feng Qizong, and Elder Goming of the Liuwa sect. The scene of Su-Yi killing the people of the Big Dipper sect was all witnessed by these people. Seeing that someone from the Big Dipper sect was furious, Merciless West could not help but shake her head and smile bitterly. She felt that wherever Su-Yi went, there would be trouble. He was a complete troublemaker. What are you afraid of? If the Big Dipper sect dares to touch our boss, we'll raze them to the ground. Su Xiaoshui poked his head out of Merciless West's arms. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Merciless West pushed him back. What should we do? Should we wait outside the Mystery Land and prepare to receive the sect leader? Huang Jian was faintly worried. He also knew how powerful the Big Dipper sect was. It was not something that the Gimdeo sect or the Seven-Star Sword School could compare with. If they did not take action, Su Yi would definitely have a hard time dealing with them. Not for now. The Mystery Land will open in a few days. Let's wait and see. We'll go there then, just in case. Merciless West shook her head and said so. He only felt a little headache. He was really on the verge of breaking down because of Su Yi. The enemies he provoked were getting stronger and stronger. However, although it was a headache, Merciless West also felt that if he encountered such a situation, he would also solve it like Su Yi. There was absolutely no reason to be soft-hearted when dealing with enemies. Speaking of which, none of them were afraid of trouble. When the time comes, let's go together, Ji Tianfu said in a low voice. Elder Feng Qizong and Elder Guming of the Liuhe sect nodded silently, but did not say anything. Their plan was very simple. They would wait and see if they needed help Su Yi. After all, in this trip to Nine-Star City, the Bawang sect, the Xinjian sect, and the Liuhe sect had vaguely begun to form an alliance. When the time came and they could help, they naturally would not be negligent. Merciless West looked at these people deeply and did not say anything. It was already very good of Ji Tianfu to say so. In fact, if the enemy was too strong, it was reasonable for the Xinjian sect and the Liuhe sect to stay out of it to avoid attracting trouble. Chapter 1072. Elder Wu was enraged by what happened in the secret realm of ominous spirits, but there was nothing he could do. When he found out that Su Yi was at the Origin Void Realm, he began to pray that the disciples of the Heavenly Dipper sect would not meet him. However, he was disappointed that the group of people did not manage to escape the calamity, and even the young master, Hong Jinxiu, lost his life. Elder Wu lowered his head and left the square without saying a word. He had to report the situation in the secret realm to the sect leader. As long as no one from the three top forces came out to protect Su Yi, the day he walked out of the secret realm would be the day he died. In the secret realm, Su Yi was completely unaware of what was happening. Killing a few people from the Heavenly Dipper sect was not a big deal to him. However, he also knew that he would be in big trouble when he walked out of the secret realm. However, it was useless to think about it now, so he might as well spend more time looking for treasures. After bidding farewell to Shang Wangchun and Xue Yuechan, he continued to explore the secret realm. Su Yi felt that it was a pity that the little beast was scared away again, but even if he was extremely angry, there was nothing he could do. If he missed the opportunity to find the extremely powerful item, then he could only accept his fate. He had to admit that the secret realm was indeed a land of treasures, and there were many precious herbs growing in it. In addition, there were also some ruins where he could find some decent dark weapons and spiritual weapons. Not only that, Su Yi also found a broken Dao artifact. It was a bow. For an ordinary Yuan Jun realm cultivator, a Dao artifact like this is definitely a treasure, Su Yi exclaimed. After looking at it for a while, he kept the broken bow in his space bag. Now that he had the golden scale sky splitter bow and could use its full power, this broken Dao artifact was no longer attractive to him. However, for the disciples of the third-rate forces, it was definitely a great opportunity. If this place had not been plundered for so many years, I wonder how many good things there would be here. Su Yi muttered to himself. He could imagine that when the secret realm first appeared, the major forces in the Chaos realm must have reaped a lot of benefits. However, to be honest, there should still be some good things that were left behind. For example, the little beast that had appeared this time and was not taken away by the experts. Time passed slowly. More than 3 days had passed since they entered the secret realm. During this period of time, Su Yi also had a decent harvest. He had collected quite a number of precious herbs. In addition, he had also discovered several strange places that contained fierce energy fluctuations that could allow cultivators to temper their bodies or souls. Unfortunately, such a degree of refinement might be very useful to the Yuan Jun stage experts of the various major factions, but to someone like Su Yi who was at the Yuan Void stage, it was already meaningless. Moreover, Su Yi's body and soul were far stronger than ordinary Origin Void stage cultivators. "My lord," You are here. I found a karst cave not far away, and I found a lot of treasured liquid inside. Just as Sui was thinking to himself, an eagle-like brute beast flew across the sky and stopped in front of him. As it spoke, the eagle-like brute beast flapped its wings, and a space bag flew out, which was caught by Sui. All right, thank you for your hard work. Sui nodded and took out a few bottles from a space bag. He opened them and found that they were indeed good treasured liquid. Sui was not interested in these things, but after leaving the secret realm, they could definitely be sold for a good price. After receiving the space bag that Sui tossed to it, the eagle-like brute beast did not say anything and flew away immediately. It was a brute beast that Sui had subdued and was specially sent out by him to search for treasures. In fact, there were many similar brute beasts. Sui had already subdued over a dozen of them. There were a few demonic void stage brute beasts, including the frost demon dragon and flaming winged devil tiger that he had seen earlier. If they encountered ordinary treasures that could be obtained by themselves, those brute beasts would obtain them themselves and gather at a designated place before handing them over to Sui. If they encountered a powerful brute beast guarding the treasures, they would try to inform Sui so that he could personally subdue it. Every time this happens, the benefits of the Origin Supreme technique can be displayed. Sui's lips curled into a smile as he sighed emotionally. With a large number of brute beasts helping him search for treasures, his efficiency would be much higher, especially those powerful brute beasts. He could command even more brute beasts to move together. With this, Sui had at least a few dozen to 100 people moving together to search for treasures. Moreover, they were all powerful individuals. As time passed, the group of brute beasts grew larger and larger. Naturally, Sui's harvest also became more and more bountiful. To him, these were all origin stones that agreed to release light. The number of brute beasts that I have tamed is still not enough. If only I could form an army and carefully comb through this mystic realm. Sui licked his lips and thought to himself sneakily. However, he was not a greedy person. That kind of thinking was not very realistic. In the mystic realm, the sky gradually darkened and night began to enshroud. A young man was moving forward between the mountains. His entire body emanated a unique aura that was both arrogant and evil. His gaze was firm, and he seemed like a tree that was deeply rooted in the ground. No matter how the wind blew, the rain struck it, it would still remain unmoved. Sir, all of a sudden, a gust of wind blew, causing the surrounding vegetation to bend over. A huge black tiger with wings as red as fire flew through the air and landed in front of the young man. Did you discover anything? Sui stopped in his tracks and asked. Normally, these brute beasts would not purposely look for him if there was nothing important. Sir, I discovered a mystic realm. It is very mystical, but it is already occupied by many humans. I think that place is not ordinary, so I came to inform you. Would you like to go and take a look? The huge tiger that flew through the air was the flaming winged demon tiger. It was a demon illusionary realm existence and was very powerful. He looked at Sui and said, Mystical realm? Sui nodded to show that he understood. Normally, in all sorts of mystical realms, there might not necessarily be treasures. There might also be opportunities and benefits that could allow one to transform to a certain extent. For such things, the brute beasts could not obtain them. Only Sui could obtain them personally. However, to Sui, ordinary places were not worthy of his attention. Now that his mixed Yuan demon body had reached the 5th level, there was probably not much that was useful to him in this mystic realm that had been searched countless times. Sir, looking at Sui's calm expression, the flaming winged demon tiger said nervously, Sir, you might not be interested in the opportunities there, but the people that you asked us to keep an eye on have also appeared there. Furthermore, they are in a very bad situation. Sui had instructed the brute beasts not to inform him of ordinary places of transformation. Hence, the flaming winged demon tiger was extremely nervous. Who did you see? Sui finally became interested and asked the flaming winged demon tiger. He had asked the brute beast to investigate the situation of the disciples of Xianjian sect and Liuhe sect when they were on a mission. Other than that, there were also Chun Chuan, Shun Hong, and Yi Haokong, the 3 rogue cultivators. After all, these 2 parties were considered allies. If they met, Su Yi felt that he could help a little and share some benefits. The flaming winged demon tiger pursed its lips and told Su Yi everything that it had found out. That girl is among the people of Xianjian sect? Su Yi frowned as he looked at the giant tiger in front of him and asked, "They are being controlled by someone. Could it be that they are in danger?" According to the flaming winged demon tiger's description, Su Yi found out that the people of Xianjian sect were being controlled by someone. Among them was the young mistress of Xianjian sect, Jihanna. This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the person who had taken action was extremely powerful. He was from one of the 3 top forces, the Blood Sun sect. After receiving this news, Su Yi's heart suddenly felt inexplicably nervous. The people of Xianjian sect had fallen into the hands of the Blood Sun sect. They would not be able to get anything out of it. How far is the secret place from here? Su Yi quickly asked. "Sir, it is less than 100 miles away." "It is very close," the flaming winged demon tiger said. "Bring me there quickly." As Su Yi spoke, he leaped onto the back of the flaming winged demon tiger. The flaming red wings on both sides of the tiger's body flapped as it soared into the sky and flew quickly in a certain direction. Su Yi was really worried. He could ignore the others, but Jihanna was among them. Since she was in danger, he had to go and take a look. Not to mention the friendship between Su Yi and Jihanna. When he was being chased by the Gimdeo sect and the 7-Star Sword School, the Xianjian sect's leader, Ji Tianfu, had also appeared and helped him escape from the pursuit. Later on, Su Yi found out that the Xianjian sect's operation was carried out under Jihanna's request. Now that Jihanna had fallen into the hands of the Blood Sun sect, Su Yi could not sit back and do nothing. Huff, huff, huff. The sound of the wind was rapid. The flaming winged demon tiger's speed was extremely fast. It did not take long for it to cross 100 miles. "You don't have to worry about me. Continue to search around." Su Yi patted the back of the flaming winged demon tiger and flew straight towards a valley in front of him. After being informed by the flaming winged demon tiger, Su Yi knew that it was the place where the people of Xianjian sect and Blood Sun sect were. At the same time, it was also the place where the mysterious place was. Su Yi moved forward quickly and soon landed in the valley. A few figures appeared in his sight. It really is the people of the Blood Sun sect. Su Yi saw more than 10 young people gathered in the valley. They were all wearing the uniform of the sect with the style of the Blood Sun sect embroidered on it. Chapter 1073. Senior Brother Luo, they have been down there for quite some time and have yet to return. I'm afraid they have died in there. In the valley, a disciple of the Blood Sun sect spoke to a short but sturdy young man beside him. "Send 2 more people down to explore. We must figure out the situation down there." The short young man, who was addressed as Senior Brother Luo, said in a deep voice. His eyes were filled with blood-red light, releasing a vicious aura and a sinister aura. As he spoke, his eyes were fixed on the mountain in front of him. At the foot of the mountain, there was a cave entrance that was as tall as a person. It was dark and deep, making it impossible to see what was inside. However, one thing that could be clearly felt was that there was a mysterious aura coming from the cave entrance. It was so mysterious that it made people want to go in and check it out. "Send 2 more people down there to check it out." The disciple who asked just now waved his hand and said loudly. Then 2 disciples of the Blood Sun sect walked to the other side. There were 5 figures there, 4 men and 1 woman. They were all from the Xianjian sect. Seeing that the disciples of the Blood Sun sect were about to take away 2 more disciples, the woman from the Xianjian sect immediately said, "Let them go, and I'll let you do whatever you want with me." This woman was Ji Hanua. She gritted her teeth as if she had made up her mind. When the short man heard this, he could not help but laugh coldly. He looked over and said, "Let them go? Then who will go and check the path for us? Don't tell me you're going to let a little girl go." As he spoke, his eyes kept on sizing up Ji Hanua. His eyes were filled with lust. Hee hee. Little girl, don't be so stubborn. You're already in the hands of the Blood Sun sect. Naturally, you'll be at our mercy. Do you think you can run away? The disciple of the Blood Sun sect who spoke first laughed weirdly as he looked at Jihan Noah. Then, his face suddenly changed. He looked at the remaining 4 male disciples of the Xinjian sect and said sternly, "However, if you don't go down and check the path, I can kill you all right now. As for the young lady of the Xinjian sect, as long as she's willing to serve our senior brother Luo well, she'll have a chance to live." After he finished speaking, the other disciples of the Blood Sun sect also laughed strangely. Their eyes were filled with filth, and they did not hide it at all. Looking at the expressions of these people, the 5 of them from Xinjian sect were filled with anger. However, since they were under the control of others, they could not do anything to resist. "Young miss, I'm going to scout for them. Take care." A male disciple from Xinjian sect stepped forward and asked the people from Blood Sun sect to remove the restrictive spell on him. After that, he walked towards the entrance of the cave. "Young miss, I'll take my leave first." Another disciple of Xinjian sect bid farewell to Jihan Noah and walked into the cave. Both of them had a heroic spirit that was ready to die, but they didn't have much of fear of death. No, Jihan Nua's anxious expression was written all over his face, and there was a sparkling light brewing in his eyes. She knew that it was not that the disciples of Xinjian sect were not afraid of death. It was just that they knew that they had no chance of escaping from Blood Sun sect today. Xinjian sect was only a third-rate force, and it was barely close to being a second-rate force. Compared to a first-rate force like Blood Sun sect, the difference was too big. If they did not follow their wishes, they might even implicate the entire Xinjian sect. No one wanted to see such an outcome. Because of this, Jihan Nuo had seen a few disciples of Xinjian sect enter the cave. However, until now, none of them had walked out of the cave alive. "Shut up, little girl. If you continue to make a ruckus, do you believe that I will find a place to kill you right now?" The short man with the surname Luo sneered and threatened her. As soon as he said that, the people of Blood Sun sect laughed strangely again. Even with Jihan Nuo's strong character, she was still a little afraid. That was something that she could not accept, and it was worse than death. But at this moment, when the group of people was laughing strangely, a light voice came from not far away, clearly reaching the ears of everyone present. "You could try to lay a finger on her." The voice came out of nowhere, as if it had appeared out of nowhere. The laughter that filled the place was interrupted by this sentence. In the next moment, the people from the Blood Sun sect also saw the figure of a young man walking out from the forest and standing in front of them. Sui, seeing the figure, Jihan Nuo was immediately energized. Her pair of big eyes were wide open, and they were filled with excitement and excitement. "Brother Su is here. He will definitely save us." The other 2 disciples of Xinjian sect who had not entered the cave were also surprised. Naturally, they knew Sui. They also knew that it was their sect leader who had bought the right to enter the secret realm of ominous spirits from him. Both of them had a good relationship. "So you are Sui." Seeing the young man walking towards him, the short man with the surname Luo Tao frowned and said in a deep voice. He started to be cautious. Even he did not notice the young man's sudden appearance earlier. It was obvious that the young man was very skillful. Luo Tao was not stupid. Otherwise, he would not have been able to cultivate to the peak of level 9 Yuanjun realm. He had heard of Su Yi's deeds and knew that the young man was not simple. Now, it seemed like he had underestimated him. "You don't have to know who I am. Let the people of Xinjian sect go. I don't want to get involved in what happened earlier. However, I must take the remaining 3 people with me." Su, he didn't know how many people were being chased into the strange cave, and he didn't want to pursue the matter. Although he had a good relationship with Xinjian sect, Su, he would not fall out with Blood Sun sect just because of a few disciples. However, he could not care less about the others, but he had to save Jihan Noah. "I heard that you're not weak. However, if you want to put on airs in front of Blood Sun sect, young man, don't you think you are too inexperienced?" Luo Tao's face was completely gloomy as he stared at Su Yi and said. In fact, he was a little nervous. He had a feeling that Su-Yi might be stronger than him. However, Luo Tao was not afraid at all. After all, there were more than 10 disciples of Blood Sun sect present. None of them were weak. Even if those third-rate and second-rate forces sent out 40 to 50 people, they would not be a match for Luo Tao's group. This was the source of Luo Tao's confidence. After Luo Tao finished speaking, he stared at the young man's face. However, he did not panic when he saw Su-Yi as he had expected. I don't want to repeat what I said just now. If you don't let them go, I will take them away myself. Su-Yi said calmly without any change in his expression. Although Blood Sun sect was strong, they had underestimated Su-Yi if they thought that they could suppress him. After saying that, Su-Yi walked towards the 3 people from Xinjian sect, completely ignoring the people from Blood Sun sect. Good lad. I would like to see how you are going to save them under our noses today. Seeing this, Luo Tao snorted coldly. In a flash, his body was emitting a scorching hot aura. At the same time, there was a blood-red radiance spreading out like a bloody sun behind him, giving him a strong and fierce aura. This was the special characteristic of Blood Sun sect's martial skill. In a domineering aura, there was a horrifying, murderous, and bloody aura. In an instant, this horrifying force rushed towards Su-Yi, trying to stop him from moving. Swoosh, Luo Tao threw out a punch. A ball of horrifying light rolled out, crushing the air and pressing towards Su-Yi. With the force of 10,000 pounds, the forest trembled. When such a punch landed on Su-Yi's body, it directly blasted him into pieces. No, it's an afterimage. However, Luo Tao was not a weakling. In an instant, he could tell that the person he hit was not Su-Yi himself, but an afterimage of him. The young man's movements were so fast that he could not even touch the corner of his clothes. This made Luo Tao's heart sink. Swoosh! Su-Yi did not even need to use the rising Yao's 100 transformation steps. He escaped Luo Tao's attack and arrived in front of Ji Hanua and the other 2 people. Miss Hanua, are you okay? The power in Su-Yi's hand landed on the 3 of them, undoing their seals. It was only at this moment that the dozen or so people from the Blood Sun sect looked over. I'm fine. Ji Hanua shook her head and said with a hint of joy in her eyes, Lad, you really want to do this the hard way. You even dare to interfere with the matters of Blood Sun sect. I've seen people who are not afraid of death, but I've never seen someone like you. Seeing that Su-Yi had broken the seal on the 3 of them, Luo Tao's face was extremely ugly. He pointed at Su-Yi and said coldly, I have no intention to have any disputes with Blood Sun sect. I just want to take them away. If you feel indignant, you can try. Su-Yi's face sank. He did not want to become enemies with a first-rate force like Blood Sun sect, but it did not mean that Su-Yi was afraid. Not to mention the people in front of him. Even if the strongest of Blood Sun sect, Wu Jiuyo and Fu Dongxian, were here, he would not be afraid. Very well. Luo Tao's eyes were filled with a blood-red light. He shouted, Let's go together and kill this lad. Let's end this quickly. Kill. The remaining disciples of Blood Sun sect moved at the same time and surrounded Su-Yi. Everyone's body was filled with a domineering, blood-red light. They were murderous and ruthless. There were no weaklings among them. The weakest was around the 7th level of Yuanzhen realm. They were extremely ferocious. They did not underestimate Su-Yi. From the situation just now, they knew that this lad was difficult to deal with. Since you're courting death, don't blame me for what happens next. Su-Yi's eyes flickered as he looked at the people who were charging at him with all their might. Chapter 1074. Walala. Terrifying blood-colored rays of light shot out from within the valley, as if numerous blood suns were blooming. All of them were heading towards Su-Yi at the same time, wanting to crush him. Peerless killing intent, peerlessly ferocious. Overlord Fist. Su-Yi shouted as he threw out a punch without any fancy moves. The punch was like a dragon coming out of its cave. It was powerful and mighty. The punch exploded the air. It was so fast that Luo Tao and the rest could not see it clearly with their cultivation. All of a sudden, The blood sun-like radiance in the air was shattered. Energy poured out crazily like an upside-down river. In the next moment, Su Yi's fist landed on a disciple of the Blood Sun sect, sending him flying. The disciple crashed into a huge rock in the distance with a loud bang. Swoosh! As soon as the first punch landed, the next came. Su Yi's figure moved like a rabbit and a falcon. Only a series of afterimages flashed across the field. It was so fast that no one could see him clearly. More than 10 disciples of the Blood Sun sect, including Luo Tao, were dumbfounded. They could not find any trace of Su Yi at all. Su Yi attacked left and right. Before they could react, a punch landed on their body. Then, they were defeated and smashed into the distance. No one knew if they were dead or alive. So strong. He must be at the origin void realm. Luo Tao realized that Su Yi must have reached the origin void realm. Otherwise, no matter how strong an ordinary Yuanjin realm cultivator was, he would not be able to crush them in such a manner. Bang! Before Luo Tao could react, his short body was sent flying and smashed into a huge rock. He fell to the ground and stopped breathing. No one knew if he was dead or alive. The 3 disciples of the Xianjian sect, who were dozens of feet away, were stunned. They gasped at the same time. Su Yi's method was too overbearing. Those were the disciples of the Blood Sun sect. How could they be so weak? Jihan Noa and the rest knew that Su Yi was strong. However, how could he be so strong? A moment later, the endless shock in the girl's eyes turned into a hidden joy. It seemed that the stronger Su Yi was, the happier Jihan Noa felt. It's good that you're all right. Su Yi let out a sigh of relief, smiled, and walked to Jihan Noa's side. Are you worried about me? Hearing his words, Jihan Noa became even happier. Her charming face slightly blushed as she lowered her head and asked. She recalled what Su Yi had said to Luo Tao when he first arrived here. That's right, Su Yi said at that time. Try and lay a finger on her. Su Yi was stunned and didn't know how to answer. Jihan Noa didn't hear a response for a while. She couldn't help but raise her head and secretly look at Su Yi's expression, but she quickly withdrew her gaze like a thief. Cough, cough. All of this was seen by Su. He coughed dryly and changed the topic. How did you guys meet with the Blood Sun sect? Also, what's in the cave? Speaking of this, Su Yi's expression gradually eased. He frowned and walked closer to the cave. According to what the flaming-winged demonic tiger had told him, that place was a mystical place, and there were unusual fluctuations. However, from the outside, it was difficult to discover anything. There was only a stretch of deep darkness, like the huge mouth of a demon king that could devour everything. We don't know either. Hearing Su Yi's question, Jihan Noa shook her head. Her face was filled with worry as she slowly recounted her previous experience. After listening to Jihan Noa, Su Yi found out that a total of 7 people from the Xianjian sect had gathered together. They were originally looking for their own opportunities in the secret realm. However, when they were passing by, the people from the Blood Sun sect suddenly appeared and captured them. From Luo Tao and the others, the people from the Xianjian sect also found out that the cave had suddenly appeared in the valley without any warning. It was as if it had appeared out of thin air, which shocked the people from the Blood Sun sect who were looking for it. Therefore, they speculated that there might be some kind of treasure inside. However, after some of them entered, they never came out. Therefore, the rest of the people from the Blood Sun sect didn't dare to rashly enter again. More than 10 people stayed here for more than 2 days, but they couldn't come up with any useful ideas. During this period, there were 2 people who entered and never came out. It was also because of this that the Blood Sun sect captured Jihan Noa and the others. They wanted them to explore for them and find out the specific situation inside. It was better to let the people from other sects die than to let their own people die in there. Moreover, these people were from a third-rate sect. Our Xianjian sect has sent a total of 4 people in twice. However, until now, none of them have come out. We don't know if they're alive or dead. Jihan Noa frowned and said. Su Yi nodded. When he had just arrived, he saw the 2 people walking into the cave from afar. However, Su Yi didn't know what kind of danger existed in there until he heard about it from Jihan Noa. The 4 people who went in are all disciples from the Xinjiang sect. I have to know their situation. Su-yi, you, and the other 2 wait for me here. I will go and find out the situation. I will be back soon." Suddenly, Jihan Nuo looked at Su-yi and the other 2 disciples from the Xinjiang sect and said, she exuded a special aura, just like when Su-yi first met her. She was assertive and responsible, showing the elegance of a lady from the Xinjiang sect. "Lady, you can't go in there. It's too dangerous." "Yeah, there's no news about the 4 of them. If you go in there, how are we going to explain this to the sect leader?" The other 2 disciples were anxious and tried to stop her. "Why don't I go in and take a look for you?" Su-yi thought about it and said. He also wanted to know what was inside the cave. He thought about the golden dragon space that he went through earlier. It appeared suddenly and disappeared after he obtained the golden dragon blood essence and dragon soul. However, he didn't know if the space here was as mysterious as the golden dragon space. However, Jihan Nuo shook her head and said no. "The people who went in are disciples from the Xinjiang sect. If you want to take a look, I will go in. There is no reason for you to take the risk." "It's okay. I want to go in and take a look. If there is really danger, I will come out immediately." He said. Jihan Nuo's eyes lit up, and she quickly said, "Then I will go in with you." Sui thought about it and nodded, "Okay." Seeing that Jihan Nuo was genuinely worried, Sui didn't reject her. After that, the 2 of them didn't waste any more time and walked towards the entrance of the cave. The other 2 disciples from the Xinjiang sect asked to go with them, but Jihan Nuo didn't allow it. This is when Sui and Jihan Nuo stepped into the cave at the same time. A strange aura rushed towards them and enveloped their bodies. In an instant, it was as if they had walked out of a brand new world. When they looked back, it was empty and there was no way out. The 2 of them seemed to be walking in a void. Above their heads, below their feet, in all directions there was nothing else. "What is this place?" Jihan Nuo was shocked and was about to take a step to the side. However, Su-yi's shout suddenly rang in her ears. "Be careful." Following Su-yi's shout, a strong hand grabbed Jihan Nuo's wrist and pulled her body to Su-yi's side. "What's going on?" "I feel a strong pulling force that wants to pull me over." Jihan Nuo was shocked and cried out involuntarily. Just as she took a step forward, a terrifying force seemed to have appeared in the space and acted directly on her body. There was no room for resistance, as if it wanted to pull her to an unknown place. At that moment, Jihan Nuo only felt that the space around her began to blur and distort. It was as if she and Su-yi were separated into 2 different spaces. If it wasn't for Su-yi's timely intervention, she couldn't imagine what would have happened. "This is an illusionary spirit world. Be careful." Su-yi frowned and said solemnly. He was a soul controller. The moment he stepped into this place, he already noticed that something was wrong. This wasn't a normal space at all. It was an illusionary spirit world that was extremely mysterious. Illusionary spirit world. Jihan Nuo was also shocked and murmured, "I've heard that it's a method that only a soul controller can use. Moreover, it's not something that an ordinary soul controller can do. We've actually fallen into an illusionary spirit world. This is troublesome." Although she said that, Jihan Nuo became calmer and calmer. She began to size up the situation around her and thought of countermeasures in her mind. "You have to follow me closely. Otherwise, if you're not careful, we'll be separated very quickly." Sui looked at Jihan Nuo with some surprise. This young girl was really not an ordinary person. She was calm in every major event, completely unlike many second-generation young masters who were golden on the outside but rotten on the inside. No matter if it was the first time they met, when the other party was fighting with the Sea Dragon Gang, or now, no matter how dangerous it was, Jihan Nuo was very calm. She didn't panic because of the dangerous situation. Regardless of her cultivation and talent, just based on her composure, it was unknown how many geniuses could compare to her. "With you here, I'm not afraid." Jihan Nuo's face suddenly revealed a smile as she smiled at Su-yi and said softly. She glanced at the strong hand that was holding her wrist, and her eyes flashed with joy. In this dangerous situation, she actually looked quite happy. Let's go. Seeing this, Su-yi was speechless. He opened his mouth and only smiled bitterly. Then, he pulled Jihan forward. Chapter 1075. Su-yi had once studied the strange gate illusory spirit world in the Dual Heaven Palace, but it was only some basic things, and he didn't go too deep. The last time he participated in the Sacred Martial Assembly, in the Sacred Martial Secret World, Su-yi also encountered a strange gate illusory spirit world. At that time, he was trapped in it for a long time and experienced a lot of illusions. Fortunately, his soul quality and strength were already extremely good, and in the end, he was able to break it and smoothly escape. But this time, Su-yi felt that this strange gate illusory spirit world was much stronger than the one he had experienced before. After so long, his soul power had indeed grown, but he didn't know if he could smoothly break it this time. I really should find Big Brother to understand this strange gate illusory spirit world. The less I know, the more I will be restrained when I encounter it. Su-yi thought to himself. He already had this thought during the last Sacred Martial Arts Conference. However, after the battle with the Sacred Mountain, he had experienced too many things and had never had the chance to learn more. Su-yi felt that after the end of this Chaos Region Alliance Conference, this matter must not be delayed any longer. Perhaps with his current strength, it was not realistic for him to set up this strange gate illusory spirit world on his own. However, it was always good to know more about it. In a situation like this, he would not be completely blind and would not know where to break through. No wonder the people who came in before couldn't go out. I hope nothing happened to them. Jihan discreetly pulled her wrist back a little and held on to Su-yi's hand. The two moved forward in the nothingness, and Jihan was also thinking about something. It's hard to say. Any strange gate, illusory spirit world is very terrifying. It's definitely not that simple. I don't know what kind of strange gate, illusory spirit world this is. Su-yi frowned and muttered to himself. He was constantly looking around, but he couldn't find any traces of this place. Su-yi only knew that all strange gate illusory spirit worlds could be roughly divided into 3 types, namely, killing type, hallucinating type, and sealing type. The meaning of the suppression type was very simple. It was capable of suppressing and annihilating the people trapped within, achieving the goal of eliminating enemies or invaders. As for the hallucinatory type, it would cause the intruder to fall into an illusion and experience all kinds of illusory things. However, all the calamities and tribulations experienced would fall on the intruder. If they couldn't break the illusion, the final outcome would be unimaginable. As for the third type, it could be said to be the simplest type. It simply had the function of sealing and trapping. However, Su-yi had learned from the Heavenly Palace's database that these 3 formations were the basics and rarely existed on their own. They were usually combined to unleash greater power. At present, Su-yi had yet to see the true type of this illusionary soul formation, but he was sure that he would have to go through a lot of trouble. Focus your mind and stabilize your soul. While they were moving forward, Su-yi suddenly spoke in a deep voice and instructed Jihan, who was beside him. Under his perception, a mysterious power began to surge in the surrounding space. It was like an invisible cloud that enveloped the two of them. Invisibly, there was a mysterious power that seemed to want to invade their bodies and affect their souls. Su-yi, on the other hand, was fine. His soul quality had surpassed the heaven tier, and his level was not weak either. He easily resisted this power. However, Jihan was different. Her brows were tightly knitted together, and her eyes were slightly closed. Her face showed some pain. You must resist it, or else it will be very troublesome. Su-yi turned around and looked at her. He used a firm voice to whisper in Jihan ear. At the same time, a powerful primordial chi gushed out from Su-yi's great void divine sea and passed through his palm into Jihan body. It made her feel much more relaxed. Thank you, Su-yi, Jihan said. Let's go. Su-yi did not say much and pulled her forward. Invisibly, he could feel a mysterious power calling from afar. If he restrained his soul power, he seemed to be able to hear a call or a temptation. Su-yi wanted to investigate by himself, but he did not feel at ease leaving Ji-Han behind. He could only bring her along. The aura here is somewhat familiar. Su-yi carefully sensed and did not dare to let his guard down. He realized that the aura around him was very familiar. It had a demonic but not evil power. It was similar to his Origin Supreme technique or Heavenly Demon ancient scripture. However, it was difficult for Su-yi to determine how dangerous the power here was. Whoosh! Suddenly, another wave of invisible chi swept through the air and was sensed by Su-yi's soul power. This chi was very powerful. It was like the surging waves of the sea. It covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant, it covered the surrounding space and wanted to cover Su-yi and Ji-Han. Be careful, Su-yi reminded in a deep voice again. At the same time, the power in his palm increased by a lot, and all of it was transmitted into Ji-Han body. However, in the next moment, when the invisible power attacked, Su-yi only felt dizzy. His body stood in the void and staggered. Fortunately, under the Origin Supreme technique, he was able to withstand the impact. However, his head was buzzing and he was not very clear. Ugh! However, Ji-Han was not so lucky. She let out a painful groan before her body went limp and was about to fall. Su-yi forced himself to stay alert and reached out to catch Ji-Han and held her in his arms. No, if this continues, she won't be able to hold on. Su-yi muttered to himself. Ji-Han soul power was not as strong as his. She was not a soul controller, and her cultivation was not very strong. The impact just now was too powerful. If this continued, even if Ji-Han physical body could be protected by him, his soul would suffer a huge injury or even be destroyed. Therefore, Su-yi planned to put her into the mysterious space. Even if the mysterious space was exposed, he could not watch Ji-Han die. Su-yi, however, just as Su-yi was about to summon the mysterious space, Ji-Han slowly woke up and looked at him softly. Are you okay? I'll take you to a place where you can avoid. Su-yi opened his mouth and said to Ji-Han. However, he was suddenly interrupted by Ji-Han. Su-yi, I like you. Ji-Han-Nua's words really made Su-yi feel as if he had been struck by lightning. But looking at the young girl's expression in front of him, her shyness was mixed with endless seriousness. It didn't seem like she was faking it. Su-yi opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, he could not open his mouth. He did not know how to respond to such a confession. Poor Su-yi, as a virgin in 2 lives, had never experienced such a thing. Therefore, he was petrified for a moment. Su-yi suddenly felt annoyed. It would be great if they were in the outside world. However, Ji-Han actually confessed to him in this damn place. In the perception of his soul power, there was an invisible force brewing in the distance. It would hit him like a wave at any time. Su-yi, do you like me? However, Ji-Han did not care about this and asked again. I'll take you to. Su-yi did not want to continue like this. He was afraid that Ji-Han would not be able to withstand the next round of attacks. But this time, before he could finish his sentence, his lips were covered by something soft and soft. Suddenly, Su-yi's mind exploded. Everything was thrown to the back of his mind at this moment. He could only feel a sweet fragrance flowing into his mouth like a clear spring. It was like a ball of fire burning all the way to Su-yi's chest and organs, making him feel like he was on fire. His entire body was burning hot, and his body felt like it had been electrocuted. He stood there stiffly without moving. This was a wonderful experience. Su-yi swore that it would be hard to find a better feeling in the world. Woo! Ji-Han once again let out a soft moan. In Su-yi's ears, it was like the sound of nature. It was pleasant to the ear and tempting. Unknowingly, a soft thing like a nimble snake pried opened Su-yi's teeth and slid into his mouth. Stay awake. This is a dangerous place. Su-yi tried his best to suppress his senses. He wanted to break free from that wonderful feeling. However, at this moment, a mysterious force came from the void. It was like a wave hitting Su-yi's body. There was a buzzing sound in his mind. The only thing left in his world was the infinite fragrance between his lips and teeth. He could no longer control himself. He pulled the soft body in front of him and hugged her tightly in his arms. The young man and young woman, in this strange space, were inexperienced but incomparably intense kissing, as if they were lovers passionately in love. Gradually, Suyi's palm began to move unconsciously. It climbed up the high ground, and the shape of his palm and fingers changed. Ji Hanua's mouth was unclear. She repeated Su Yi's name over and over again. Her body began to twist and stick close to Su Yi as she responded passionately. Swish! The belt of their clothes gradually disappeared. In an instant, the two of them faced each other frankly and tightly stuck to each other's bodies. Roar! Suddenly, Su Yi let out a low roar. The force in his body burst forth and pressed Ji Hanua down in the void. All of this seemed to be natural. Gradually, they began to reach the final step. Ji Hanua tightly hugged Su Yi's neck. At this most critical moment, she seemed to know what was going to happen. She suddenly bit down on Su Yi's shoulder. Su Yi let out a blood-curdling scream. It pierced through gold and cracked stone. It spread far and wide in this space. Chapter 1076. Not good. The moment he pushed Ji Hanua's body out, Su Yi's heart was alarmed, and he knew that something was wrong. He then remembered that the two of them were in the strange door's illusory spirit world. If they were separated from Ji Hanua, Su Yi couldn't imagine whether she could survive. However, by the time Su Yi reacted, it was already too late. In the void, the exquisite body slowly faded as if it had entered another space. Su Yi wanted to grab it, but he grabbed empty air. This is bad. Su Yi finally woke up completely, his heart thumping nonstop. He looked at the direction where Ji Hanua disappeared and didn't move for a long time. Only then did he realize that Ji Hanua and himself were definitely affected by the strange door's illusory spirit world and lost their original consciousness, which was why they did that. Fortunately, Ji Hanua bit down at the last moment, which made Su Yi stop abruptly. Otherwise, he would have made a big mistake. Su Yi, a virgin for 2 lifetimes, absolutely didn't want anything to happen between him and Ji Hanua in a muddle-headed situation. Of course, he might be willing to do it when he was sober. I must break this strange door's illusory spirit world as soon as possible. Otherwise, Miss Hanua will be in danger. Su Yi's face became solemn. He stood up straight in the void, put on the clothes on the ground, and put away Ji Hanua's clothes as he muttered. Ji Hanua disappeared and was trapped in the strange door's illusory spirit world. With her strength, it was almost impossible for her to walk out of here. One must know that she had fallen into the illusion in just a moment. Even with Su Yi protecting her, she couldn't control her soul and directly fell into the illusion. Su Yi felt that Ji Hanua would be like the previous few people, unable to walk out of here. The only way to save her was to break this strange door's illusory spirit world. Every strange door's illusory spirit world has its own characteristics. How should I break it? Su Yi frowned tightly and racked his brains, but he couldn't think of a good way. When it was time to use it, Su Yi really had this feeling now. He could only blame himself for knowing too little about the strange door's illusory spirit world. If he had the opportunity to learn more related knowledge before, he wouldn't be so helpless now. Back when he was in the Heavenly Palace's information section, the things he learned were too superficial and barely scratched the surface. Relatively speaking, this phantom spirit world was many times more advanced than the one he had encountered in the sacred martial secret world. At least after so long, Su couldn't find any clues to break it. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from the front, and the surrounding scene changed instantly. It was outside the gate of the barbarian city's Su family. A tall old man appeared and walked towards Su Yi with his arms spread wide open. "Die, old man." He. In the next instant, a figure leaped out from behind the old man and stabbed out with a sword, piercing through the old man's heart. This little trick can't confuse me anymore. Change it to something more powerful. Sui watched all of this. Although he was moved when he saw his grandfather die in the illusion, he still maintained his last bit of calmness. Sui knew that everything that happened here, as long as it didn't happen to him, was all an illusion. Everything was fake. Boom! Sui stepped forward with a cold face and smashed the illusion in front of him into pieces with a punch. Sui, you little thief, I will definitely kill you. Hurry up and return my blood devil killing god sword to me. Another peerlessly beautiful woman appeared. She was like an immortal, not someone from the mortal world. However, this woman had a cold look on her face. After seeing Sui, she raised her sword and charged at him as if she was going to fight with her life on the line. Get lost. Do you think you can confuse me like this? Sui snorted and smashed Shirsusu with another punch, smashing her into pieces and dissipating into the void. These were all illusions and couldn't be real. Sui's mind was firm. In a situation where he didn't have to worry about Jihan Nuo, it was much easier for him to deal with the illusions. In his mind, under the operation of the heavenly origin demon soul, it was easy to break through the illusions. Although it consumed a lot of energy, Sui was really fearless in a short period of time. Whoosh, whoosh. That was because Sui knew that everything here was fake. The young man's figure stood in the air like an ancient giant tree, unmoving and unmoving. No matter how the wind blew or the rain hit him, he remained motionless. Suddenly, just as Sui broke through all the illusions, an exquisite body appeared in the space not far away. It was completely naked and gradually solidified. Miss Hanu, Sui exclaimed. That woman's body was none other than Jihan Nuo, who had disappeared earlier. She was currently unconscious and couldn't seem to hear Sui's voice, so she couldn't answer him. Sui was pleasantly surprised. He was really worried about Jihan Nuo. Furthermore, after the charming scene between the two of them, the young man's heart was filled with a strange, hazy feeling. At the same time, Sui flew out and went to Jihan Nuo's side. He wanted to bring her into the mysterious space so that she wouldn't suffer any more harm. Something's not right. Just as his palm was about to touch Jihan Nuo's body, Sui was shocked, and then his figure retreated explosively. As expected, the naked woman's body exploded and a terrifying energy burst out. It was as if a destructive wave had been set off and swept towards Sui fiercely. Fortunately, he reacted in time and retreated quickly enough. Otherwise, Sui would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die under the attack of this energy. What a terrifying illusion. Sui mustered 120% of his energy and murmured. He had originally come in with Jihan Nuo, and that kind of thing had happened before. Therefore, when the naked body appeared in front of him, Sui subconsciously thought that it was Jihan Nuo without a doubt, so he wasn't on guard at all. He was a little scared at the thought. If he hadn't woken up at the last moment, he would have been tricked. Rumble. At this moment, the surrounding space trembled violently. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was cracking, as if a tsunami was coming. In the void, there seemed to be tens of thousands of mountains collapsing and thousands of waves roaring. The momentum was shocking, as if it was the end of the world. At the same time, the situation evolved. Sui saw that the mountains were collapsing, the earth was cracking, the river was boiling, the space was trembling, and the sky was overturning. Roar, roar. Following the appearance of this scene, terrifying roars of beasts were heard. It was mixed with the roars of dragons and tigers that penetrated the depths of one's soul. It was as if they wanted to directly destroy Sui. Is it still an illusion? Sui's face turned solemn. This scene was too terrifying. It wasn't something a human could achieve. Even an Origin Emperor realm cultivator would be crushed into ashes in an instant when faced with this doomsday scene. Sui didn't know if all of this was real or fake, but it was probably impossible for him to resist it. He could only guard his mind tightly. If it was an illusion, everything would collapse by itself. Without thinking, he sat down cross-legged, gently closed his eyes and entered a meditative state. The origin supreme technique in his body began to circulate naturally, emitting a faint light. Sui didn't make any movements. He didn't try his best to destroy everything in front of him like before, because the doomsday scene before him was not something he could deal with. Those forces were illusory, but once they were used on him, they were definitely real. Unless he wanted to be crushed into ashes, it was best not to touch them. Rumble. Just as Sui entered a meditative state, a scene of destructive force poured down crazily from space. A mountain collapsed and suddenly pressed on Sui's body. But strangely, the mountain seemed to be repelled by a mysterious force at the last moment and dripped to the side. Whoosh! A large river was like a waterfall across the sky. The waves were tens of thousands of feet high, as if they could destroy everything. And when it came into contact with Sui's body, it was like a clear spring, just giving Sui a bath. Boom! A terrifying thunderbolt fell from the ninth heaven. The terrifying lightning beam was thicker than a mountain, and it blasted on Sui's head. But the final result was also ordinary. It only made a series of electric arcs rise from Sui's body, flowing continuously as if it was baptizing his body. Scene after scene, destructive force after destructive force descended, all of them brazenly landing on Sui's body. But in the end, they were all annihilated. Sure enough, it's all bark and no bite. It's like a joke, mostly to scare people. When all the forces dissipated, Sui finally opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Under his steadfast mind, none of that had much of an impact on him. However, Sui was also very clear in his heart that if he had the slightest bit of carelessness, the energy that had descended on his body just now could definitely kill him 10,000 times over, and not even ashes would be left. This was the terrifying part of the phantom spirit world. Ordinary people would definitely not be able to withstand this move. Not to mention other things, just talking about the destructive force that Sui's body had just endured, it was actually not small. But because he had the mixed Yuan demon body, he was not afraid of this. This power is... Chapter 1077. When Sui first entered the mystical gate, illusory soul world, he had already felt an aura that was demonic but not evil. It was somewhat similar to the primordial chaos supreme technique in the heavenly Fey ancient scripture that he cultivated. But at that time, the aura was not particularly strong. Coupled with the fact that he had to be vigilant at all times, Sui did not think too much about it. And at this moment, after he had passed through all the tests of the illusory realm's destructive force, the demonic aura in the void became even richer. Sui could clearly sense it. Sui was astonished. When the aura surged into his body, it gave him an indescribable sense of comfort. This time, Sui was very certain that this was definitely not an illusion, but something that had happened in reality. Why would the heavenly Fey ancient scripture's power appear here? Sui was greatly puzzled. He was too familiar with the aura. It was exactly the same as the power he obtained from cultivating the heavenly Fey ancient scripture. While he was shocked, he unconsciously circulated the heavenly Fey ancient scripture, allowing the surrounding energy to enter his body and wander freely. During this process, Sui felt that his cultivation was faintly increasing. From the second level of the origin void stage, he began to stride towards the third level. Such an increase could be said to be frightening. One had to know that with Sui's current great void divine sea's vastness, every breakthrough was much more difficult than others. Even if it was only a small increase, it was enough to show how powerful and terrifying the energy here was. Oh, just as Sui was feeling puzzled, an exclamation came from the void. Following that, a loud and clear voice came out like thunder, entering Sui's ears. You have my Tian Yao School's cultivation method on you. It seems like you are my disciple and the current head of the Tian Yao School. After the voice faded, Sui saw an illusory middle-aged man appear out of thin air and stand in front of him under his shocked gaze. Looking up, This middle-aged man's figure was incomparably imposing, and he wore a wide robe with large sleeves. His face was angular, and his eyebrows were thick and dark. His eyes seemed to contain lightning, and he was overbearing and dignified just by standing there. There was an invisible power that could suppress the heavens and earth. He suddenly felt that it was difficult to breathe. It was as if he was facing a god. "You are." He spoke with difficulty, feeling his throat go dry. "Since you've obtained my inheritance, I'm afraid you've already guessed my identity." "That's right. I'm the former head of Tian Yao School, Shifter Emperor Sky Splitter. Now, he is also your master." The middle-aged man looked at Yi and said. His figure looked very illusory, but his eyes were extremely bright and dazzling like two scorching suns. It was so dazzling that Yi almost couldn't open his eyes. "Master!" Yi was completely shocked. He had already guessed this result, but he still felt incomparably shocked when the middle-aged man admitted it himself. That's right, when he was in the Heavenly Monster Cave, he obtained the inheritance of Tian Yao School and obtained the Heavenly Monster Ancient Scripture. Therefore, from then on, Yi also began to take on a new responsibility, which was to revitalize Tian Yao School and let it shine again in this world. And Yi did exactly that. After the demon Venerable Grandma Shangguan and the others died at the hands of the Sacred Mountain and other major forces, he led the remaining people of Spirit Ancient Village, the Wild Bear Tribe, and the tribe of Tiger Hunters to seek help from Kanglan City so that they could have a place to hide. In fact, the Bawang sect that Yi founded was to prepare for the Tian Yao School in the future. However, because the enemy was too strong, he couldn't immediately use the name of Tian Yao School. And this was something that Yi didn't even tell his big brother, Merciless West. Demon Emperor Sky Splitter, disciple Yi greets master. Yi bowed respectfully to the middle-aged man. This was indeed his master. Since he had received benefits from Tian Yao School, Yi was naturally a member of Tian Yao School. No need to stand on ceremony. The middle-aged man spoke but didn't move. Then he said loudly, "I only have a trace of my soul left, and I can't stay any longer. If you have any questions, you don't have to ask. Just listen to me." Yi slowly straightened his body and stared at the tall man in front of him without saying a word. 9,000 years ago, Tian Yao School was coveted by a powerful enemy and was in danger of being destroyed. I had the foresight to leave 2 inheritances in the world in order to prevent the inheritance from being completely severed. One was in the Heavenly Demon Grotto, which is where you obtained it, and the other was here. The inheritance of the Heavenly Demon Grotto was left behind by the descendants of Tian Yao School. It was only hoped that one day, the demon sect's glory would be restored and prosper in the world. The inheritance here was left as a precaution. Even if the inheritance was lost, it couldn't be severed. He understood. His master, Demon Emperor Sky Splitter, meant that he left behind these 2 inheritances to prevent any accidents. Not only was it to prevent the Tian Yao School from facing enemies, but it was also to prevent any of the Tian Yao School's disciples from obtaining the inheritance of the ancient Heavenly Demon Scripture. This was indeed within his expectations. For 9,000 years, no one from the Spirit Ancient Village, the Wild Bear Tribe, or the tribe of Tiger Hunters was able to obtain the ancient Heavenly Demon Scripture from the Heavenly Demon Grotto. In the end, it fell into Yi's hands. Therefore, Demon Emperor Sky Splitter's purpose in doing this was that it didn't matter if the inheritance of the Tian Yao School fell into the hands of an outsider, as long as it wasn't severed. The inheritance of the Heavenly Demon Grotto is the strongest cultivation technique of the demon sect, the ancient Heavenly Demon Scripture. And here is the cornerstone treasure of the Tian Yao School, the Demon God Battlesuit. Demon Emperor Sky Splitter's figure became fainter and fainter, but he continued, "Since you are my disciple and can come here, the Demon God Battlesuit should be taken away." Demon God Battlesuit. Yi's expression suddenly shook. This name sounded like the Demon Emperor Sky Splitter's name, overbearing beyond compare. Just the 4 words, Demon God Battlesuit, were enough to show how terrifying it was. It was definitely a treasure. In addition, the place you are now in is the demon sect's strongest illusory spirit world, called the 10,000 Demons Divine Refining Array. You can also take it away. With these two items, you will definitely revive the Tian Yao school in the future. My disciple, I entrust all of this to you. As the middle-aged man spoke, his body became even fainter and completely transparent. It was as if he would completely dissipate with just a breath. Disciple is cautious. Master's order is to revive the Tian Yao school and make it prosper in the world. Disciple will also trample on all the enemies of the past one by one to avenge the blood feud of the past. The rims of Su Yi's eyes turned red, and there was a crystal-clear light brewing in them. He stared at his master, the Demon Emperor Sky Splitter, and spoke powerfully. Su Yi's throat was a little choked up when he thought of the great battle in the past, in which Grandma Shangguan and the others died under the encirclement of those forces. The boiling hot blood that sprayed into the void, the scenes of destruction, and the figures that fell from the sky. He would never forget it in this lifetime. Hearing Su Yi's words, the Demon Emperor Sky Splitter didn't say anything else. Instead, he waved his arm, and a palm-sized object fell into Su Yi's hand. This object looked like a carved plate of the 8 trigrams, and there were pictures of the sun, moon, and stars engraved on it. Su Yi looked at it and felt dizzy. It was as if his entire soul was going to be swallowed directly. This is the core array disk of the 10,000 Demons Divine Refining Array. Once you obtain it, you can control the illusory spirit world of this place and take it away. The middle-aged man's light figure became more and more blurry, and his voice also began to become unclear. He paused and said, "In addition, the person who entered this place with you, because you solved the test here, I have also bestowed upon her an opportunity." Su Yi was pleasantly surprised when he heard this. The person who entered this place with him was naturally Jihan Na. Su Yi was relieved that she was fine. "Master, what about the demon god battle suit?" As he watched his master's figure begin to dissipate, Su Yi suddenly thought of this matter and couldn't help but ask quickly. The demon god battle suit has already become a spirit and has its own spirituality. It left this place not long ago, but it won't be too far away. You can find it nearby, and with the power of the heavenly demon ancient scripture, you can make it recognize you as its master. The demon emperor's voice finally dissipated and was carried away by the wind, completely vanishing. His figure turned into a speck of light and entered Su Yi's glabella before disappearing. In the void in front of Su Yi, there's still nothing. 10,000 Demons Divine Refining Array, Demon God Battlesuit. Su Yi muttered as he held the core array disc in his hand. His heart was extremely shaken. He was holding the illusory spirit world of the illusory spirit world, and he had actually obtained such a treasure. One could only imagine how terrifying the illusory spirit world, which was the strongest of the celestial demon sect's mystical gate, was during its glory 9,000 years ago. And what made Su Yi drool even more was the demon god battlesuit. The demon god battlesuit, it's actually that little guy. Su Yi raised his eyebrows and muttered to himself helplessly. Before his master finally dissipated, the speck of light entered his glabella and revealed the appearance of the demon god battlesuit after it became a spirit. Wasn't it the little beast that Su Yi had seen twice before? However, Su Yi's luck wasn't good. The 2 times he tried, he was disrupted by Su and the people from the Heavenly Dipper sect. Can I subdue it with the power of the heavenly Fey ancient scripture? Su Yi laughed bitterly. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble and wasted 2 bottles of spiritual liquid. In the end, it was all for naught. However, Su Yi knew how to deal with the little beast this time. He felt that the first thing he would do after leaving this place would not be to search for treasure herbs, but to subdue enough savage beasts in the secret realm of ominous spirits and send them out to search for the little beast. No matter how good the treasure herbs were, they definitely couldn't compare to the demon god battlesuit. "It's time to leave," Su Yi muttered as he released his soul strength and poured it into the arrayed disc in his hand. At the same time, he said, "Retrieve." Chapter 1078. The cave was pitch black, and he couldn't even see his own fingers. After some time, Su-Yi slowly opened his eyes. "You're awake." As if sensing Su-Yi's movements, a woman's voice sounded not far away. "My head hurts." Su-Yi covered his head with both hands and felt a splitting headache. It was as if someone had opened up his head and tears were about to come out. After a while, he remembered what he had experienced. Su-Yi observed for a while and found that he was in an ordinary cave. The strange gate, illusory spirit world had disappeared. Therefore, Su-Yi was sure that the strange gate, illusory spirit world that he and Jihanua had entered came from the 10,000 demon refining array of the Tianyao school. At this time, the strange gate, illusory spirit world had been stored in the array disk and was now in his hand. However, in order to store it, Su-Yi had exhausted all of his soul power, causing him to have a splitting headache. "Su-Yi, are you okay?" The woman's voice sounded again, and it was Jihanua. However, in the darkness, she wasn't by Su-Yi's side. Instead, she was quite a distance away, which was very strange. "Why is it pitch black?" Su-Yi rubbed his head, and under the circulation of his primordial chi, a light suddenly emitted. "No!" However, this action caused Jihanua to shriek, and Su-Yi almost jumped in fright. "What's wrong with you?" Su-Yi found it strange and didn't restrain his chi. Instead, he looked in the direction of the voice. There was a small stone there, and a naked girl was hugging her body and squatting behind the stone. However, compared to the girl's body, the stone was too small and could only block part of the scene. Su-Yi glanced over, and instantly, a beautiful scene came into view. That tight body and that beautiful curve made him extremely captivated, and for a moment, he was actually a little dazed as he stared at it. "Scoundrel, turn around, don't look." When Jihanua saw Su-Yi's gaze, she angrily shouted and hugged her arms even tighter. However, Su-Yi could clearly see that the girl's pure white skin had actually become a little rosy. Her pretty face was so red that it was as if she had a fever, making her look even more delicate and charming. "Cough, cough. I didn't see anything." Su-Yi coughed dryly, then smiled awkwardly and turned his head reluctantly. He finally recalled that he and Jihanua had gone through a series of charming events in the illusory spirit world. During the process, Ouyangming and Jihanua had taken off their clothes. Hence, they did not bring their interspatial bags with them when they disappeared. Therefore, after the strange gate illusory spirit world was taken away, she appeared in this cave, naked and clean. "Miss Hanua, here are your clothes and your spatial bag." Su-Yi took out some items from his interspatial bag and tossed them to Jihanua as he said, "Don't peek." Jihanua shouted again. Her face was burning red. She glanced at Su-Yi for a while and saw that the young man was constantly swallowing his saliva. Moreover, his gaze was uncontrollably stealing glances at her, which made Jihanua both embarrassed and angry. "I promise I won't look." Su-Yi raised his hand and covered his eyes, muttering in his heart, "See no evil, see no evil, see no evil." Jihanua stared at Su-Yi for a long while. Seeing that he really didn't move, Jihanua carefully began to put on her clothes, covering her exquisite body with her dress. Finally, she carefully tidied herself up and did not find any flaws, then said softly, "It's done." "Cough, cough. Miss Hanua, are you all right?" Only then did Su-Yi turn around, but there was still some awkwardness in his expression. His master, the Demon Emperor Laitan, told him that Jihanua had also obtained an opportunity and should be fine, but Su-Yi still wanted to ask. "I'm fine, what about you?" Jihanua shook her head and said, "I'm fine too." Su-Yi answered. The two looked at each other and did not speak for a while. As time passed, the atmosphere slowly became a little strange. "I also obtained some benefits inside. It's an extremely powerful sword art inheritance, but it doesn't seem to be as simple as a sword art." After a long while, Jihanua spoke to break the silence. "Sword art? Anyway, it's good that you're fine. It's time to go out. How long have I been unconscious? Su Yidong spoke one sentence after another, looking somewhat absent-minded. You've already slept for 3 days. In another 2 days, this trip to the secret realm should be over. Ji Hanua pursed her lips and said, Damn, I've slept for 3 days? Su Yi suddenly felt unwell. Did he consume so much of his soul power? He actually slept for 3 days before waking up, and at this time, he had a terrible headache. They only had 2 days to gather at the Nirvana Dragon Arena, and after the last competition, they would have to leave the secret realm of ominous spirits. Su Yi wanted to cry. He still had time to find the demon god battlesuit, and he did not know where the artifact spirit was at this time. If he could not find it in 2 days, wouldn't he miss out on such a huge benefit? Moreover, it originally belonged to the Tian Yao school. Once he left the secret realm of ominous spirits, with the nature of the top 10 factions of the Chaos Region Alliance, Su Yi would definitely not be allowed to enter again, and the demon god battlesuit would be gone. Let's go out quickly. The people outside must be waiting anxiously. Su Yi did not dare to tarry, so he took the lead and walked out of the cave. This cave was very deep and winding, and even the light outside could not reach this place. Seeing Su Yi walk out, Ji Hanua did not hesitate and quickly followed, walking side by side with him. Previously, she was naked and did not dare to leave this place alone for fear of being exposed in front of others. Ji Hanua would rather let Su Yi see her than let others take advantage of her. We're almost at the entrance. The cave was very deep, but the two of them were very fast. In just a few breaths of time, they could already see the light, and the two of them could see each other's faces. That, Ji Hanua suddenly stammered, as if she wanted to say something, but stopped. What? Su Yi casually asked. His mind was filled with the artifact spirit of the demon god battlesuit. Previously, the two of us. That matter was not real, right? Ji Hanua blinked her bright eyes and asked tentatively. As she asked the question, she stared at Su Yi, trying to see his expression. After Su Yi heard this, he was also stunned, and then flatly denied. It's not real. Everything was an illusion. Nothing happened between us. That was the effect of the phantom world. He had a serious look on his face, but there was a different kind of expression in his eyes. He actually swallowed a mouthful of saliva. You bastard. Ji Hanua wished she could slap Su Yi to the cave wall. This brat did not even know how to cover up, and was actually swallowing his saliva, as if he was reminiscing about the aftertaste. This was not the first time. It was too blatant. He did not treat her existence at all. Also, what do you mean it's not real? Everything was an illusion, and nothing happened between us. These words sound very fake, okay? I didn't even ask you the details, and you answered so straightforwardly. I just asked you, can you think before you speak? Ji Hanua fiercely stomped her feet, and her face was flushed red, as if she was on fire. Su Yi secretly glanced at her and did not say anything. In fact, when he said that, he had already realized that something was wrong, but it was too late to change his words. The charming scene that happened earlier was indeed not Su Yi's subjective wish, and it was also not that Ji Hanua really wanted to do that with him. But Su Yi knew that this little girl definitely liked him. The phantom world was able to bewitch people, but it was based on what they thought and magnified it. Let's play dumb first. Su Yi made up his mind that he must play dumb until the end, as if nothing had happened. Otherwise, it would really be very awkward. After all, the last step was not really done. Su Yi thought regretfully. The two of them quickly walked out of the cave and came to the valley. After they appeared, two figures flashed from the forest not far away. Big Miss, Brother Su Yi, are you all right? These two people were the other two disciples of Xianjian sect. They had actually been waiting at the entrance of the cave and did not leave. Su Yi and Ji Hanua only came out 3 days ago, and they had also waited for 3 days. We're fine. Ji Hanua shook her head and said. Then, her face was filled with sadness, and she said, The 4 people who went in before us did not find any of them. Under the orders of the people of Blood Sun sect, the few disciples of Xianjian's sect who entered the cave did not appear. Even after the phantom world disappeared, only Jihan and Su Yi appeared in the cave. Don't be sad. Some things are fine as long as we try our best. As for the result, it's not something that you and I can control. Su Yi looked at Jihan and comforted her. Now that the arrayed disc of the 1,000-demon refining deity array was in his hands, Su Yi also knew that there were no living things in the phantom world. Therefore, all the people who had entered before had already died under various kinds of illusions. It could even be said that they had turned into ashes, and even their corpses did not exist. Let's go. There's not much time left. If we don't leave now, we won't be able to reach the Nirvana Dragon platform in time. Jihan suppressed the sadness in her heart and said to the few people beside her, "You guys go ahead first. I still have some things to do, so I'll catch up later." Su Yi said. Jihan looked at him deeply, but did not say anything in the end. She just nodded and said, "Then you have to be careful." Okay. Chapter 1079. Rumble. When the four of them left, the mountain where the cave was located suddenly rumbled. In just a moment, it collapsed, filling up the entire valley. Su Yi, who was not far away, also sensed all of this. Not long after he bid farewell to Jihan and the other two, the flaming-winged devilish tiger also leaped out from the dense forest. My lord, it had not seen Su Yi for a few days. When it saw the two people from the Xianjian sect waiting outside, it guessed that Su Yi might have entered the cave. Therefore, the flaming-winged devilish tiger was also waiting here. Go escort them and wait for me near the Nirvana Dragon Arena. If you're willing to go out, I can bring you along. Su Yi looked at the flaming-winged devilish tiger and said, "Yes, my lord." The flaming-winged devilish tiger slightly prostrated itself and said respectfully, "I'm willing to follow my lord and leave this place for the outside world." In a short few days of contact, the flaming-winged devilish tiger could clearly feel that this young man had an indescribable temperament that made it unconsciously feel reverence for him. Moreover, many of them would also get a share of the treasures they found. After all, the secret realm of ominous spirits was not big and the world was too small. The flaming-winged devilish tiger still wanted to go out and experience the outside world. Go. Su Yi nodded and said. Seeing the flaming-winged devilish tiger soar into the sky, Su Yi also took a step forward and flew in the void. Not long after, he appeared in a hidden valley where a large number of flaming-winged devilish beasts had gathered and were all waiting quietly. My lord, these are the treasures we found. One by one, the flaming-winged devilish beasts came forward and handed over the treasures they had found to Su Yi. Among them, there were 4 or 5 flaming-winged devilish beasts and other flaming-winged devilish beasts. Since you found these treasures, I'll give you a share. Now, I'll give you a chance. Is anyone willing to leave this secret realm with me and follow me? Once we reach the outside world, I promise you that you'll get better benefits than these treasures by 1,000,000 times. Su Yi raised the interspatial bag in his hand and spoke softly to the dozens of beasts in front of him. This was not a weak force. The demon illusionary realm was the leader, and the demon true realm was also a group. If they entered the mysterious space and gained some benefits, their strength would be greatly improved. It would not be difficult for them to break into the demon royal realm within a few years. Sir, I'm willing to follow you to the outside world. My lord, I'm willing as well. My lord. In an instant, all the savage beasts prostrated themselves on the ground. Most of them expressed their desire to travel with Su Yi. In the beginning, they had submitted to the young man's strange and domineering cultivation method. However, after interacting with him for a while, they knew that this human was definitely reliable and not a scheming person. Of course, the most important thing was that all the savage beasts in the secret realm wanted to explore the outside world. All right, Su Yi didn't force the beasts to leave. He gave out a lot of spiritual herbs to those beasts that didn't want to leave. Then he brought the other group of savage beasts to a secluded place and brought them into the mysterious space. As soon as they entered the independent space, all the savage beasts that chose to follow Su-Yi realized that they had made the right choice. Let's continue to look for the artifact spirit. That's my demon god battle suit. After Su-Yi left the mysterious space, he began to get busy again. It could be said that it was difficult to find anyone else in this area. Almost all the disciples that entered the Alliance Conference should have gathered at the Nirvana Dragon Arena. Only a cultivator at the second level of the Origin Void stage like Su-Yi wasn't so anxious, and he was still able to delay for another day or so. After all, his speed was much swifter than an ordinary person, not to mention he could tame a barbaric demon beast as a means of transportation. However, Su-Yi was extremely distressed. The secret realm of ominous spirits was very vast. If he wanted to look for the artifact spirit, he would have to search inch by inch. It would probably take him forever. Looks like I can only try the old method again. He smiled bitterly and took out another bottle of spirit liquid. He opened the bottle and let the spirit liquid's aura spread out in the air. Not only that, Su-Yi also circulated his origin energy to make the spirit liquid's aura even denser and wider. It's all up to fate now. Su-Yi muttered to himself as he shuttled back and forth in the forest. He followed a fixed path so that the spirit liquid's aura would only appear in a certain area. In this way, there would only be two results. Either the artifact spirit wouldn't be able to sense it, or it would go around in circles in this area, making it easier for Su-Yi to kidnap it. Su-Yi had been busy for half a day. It was already the 7th day since he entered the secret realm. He was extremely anxious. Just when Su-Yi was almost done with his work and only needed to patrol the designated area, a figure flew over from afar and landed in his line of sight. The newcomer was dressed in a blood-red robe and was about 30 years old. There was a hidden ruthlessness between his eyebrows, and his body was filled with killing intent. Wu Jiuyo. Su-Yi was startled. Based on his previous understanding of the situation, he could roughly determine the identity of this young man. He should be the #1 expert of a younger generation of the Blood Sun sect. Wu Jiuyo. He didn't go to the Nirvana Dragon platform. What was he still doing here? Su-Yi muttered, feeling that his luck wasn't too good. The first time he almost caught the artifact spirit, he was disturbed by Shirsusu. The second time, he was disturbed by Hong Jinxiu and the others from the Tiangang sect. This time, when he was thinking of a way to lure the artifact spirit, Wu Jiuyo appeared here again. Please don't ruin it again. If that was the case, Su-Yi would definitely curse. Hurry up and get lost. Don't affect my important matters. Su-Yi didn't have a good impression of the Blood Sun sect, mainly because of Luo Tao and the others. He muttered, hoping that Wu Jiuyo would leave early and not delay him from catching the artifact spirit. However, things didn't go as planned. The more Su-Yi disliked Wu Jiuyo, the more the other party didn't have the intention to leave. Instead, he saw the figure land directly on top of a tree and quietly observe the surroundings. It was obvious that Su-Yi's spiritual liquid's aura had caused him to sense something unusual. Bawang sexed Su-Yi. Not long after, Wu Jiuyo also noticed Su-Yi's figure because Su-Yi didn't hide his aura. In fact, it didn't matter whether he hid it or not. Wu Jiuyo glanced at Su-Yi indifferently and didn't pay much attention to him. Speaking of which, the reason why Wu Jiuyo was able to recognize Su-Yi was because there was only one such young youth who had entered the secret realm of vast spirits. Su-Yi frowned when he saw this, but he didn't say anything in the end. You made this aura? After Wu Jiuyo observed for a while, he suddenly looked at Su-Yi again. He stood on top of the tree and looked down at Su-Yi. His tone was calm, but it couldn't hide the condescension in it. Indeed, Wu Jiuyo had the strength to look down on his peers. He was not even 30 years old, but he had already broken through to the second level of the Origin Void stage. Only a few people in the entire Chaos region could be compared to such innate talent. It's none of your business. Su-Yi didn't even think about it before replying calmly. He didn't have the time to care about Wu Jiuyo. Now, every minute and second that passed made Su-Yi impatient, so he didn't have the time to waste on him. Kid, do you know who you're talking to? Wu Jiuyo's face sank as he asked coldly. in the entire Chaos region. Even if it was sure Susu, Qin Yusheng, Jing Charon, and the others from the Blue Cloud Hall in Nine Star Valley, there probably wasn't anyone who looked down on Wu Juyo like this. However, this young man from the Bawang sect, Su Yi, who had no background, actually dared to speak to him in such a tone. Anger began to brew in Wu Juyo's heart. But in the next moment, something that made him even more displeased appeared. After he asked this question, he was still waiting for Su Yi's answer, but he saw the young man didn't even look at him. He just turned around and shuttled through the forest as if he was looking for something. This caused Wu Juyo's face to turn slightly red. Could there be some treasure here? Wu Juyo's brows raised as he thought in his heart. Then, he no longer bothered about Su Yi's attitude earlier. He skimmed through the treetops, following Su Yi's footsteps, wanting to see what this young man was up to. Wu Juyo couldn't help but think so. After all, the aura in the forest was very unusual. Just a whiff of it was enough to make one feel refreshed, and the circulation of Yuan Qi in one's meridians became smoother. If this aura really came from some treasure, then it could be seen how miraculous it was. Little beast, come out quickly. Su Yi's mouth began to chant like a monk, constantly muttering and searching around. The secret realm of ominous spirits was too big. Su Yi didn't know if the little beast would be nearby. He could only say that he would do his best and leave it to fate. It was better to be busy than to do nothing. He's really looking for some treasure. In the treetops behind him, Wu Juyo's eyes lit up, showing a little excitement. He could finally conclude that the young man was definitely looking for something important. With this conclusion, Wu Juyo became more and more interested. He had to go down and take a look. Who knows, there might be some unexpected gains. In any case, there was still some time before the competition on the Nirvana Dragon platform. If he rushed over a little later, he could still make it. But suddenly, the young man in front of him turned his head and looked over with an expressionless face. I advise you, it's best not to follow me. If you affect my business, I don't mind killing you. Even if you have the Blood Sun sect behind you, it can't be your life-saving talisman. Su Yi's tone was calm, but one could hear the thick, killing intent bursting out from it. Chapter 1080. Kid, what did you say? Wu Juyo rubbed his ears, wondering if he had heard wrongly. The corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously. He was laughing out of anger. He had heard that the Bawang sect youth was arrogant, but he had not expected him to be arrogant to this extent. It was unbelievable, but very quickly, Wu Juyo's expression eased, and he calmed down. Su Yi had mentioned the Blood Sun sect. What did that mean? It meant that he knew who he was. Since that was the case, he still dared to spout such nonsense. Was he really arrogant and ignorant? Wu Juyo did not think so. Even though he still felt that Su Yi's words were mostly bluffing, he no longer underestimated him. This young man might really have some skills. Stay away from me, Su Yi said indifferently. Then, he ignored Wu Juyo and busied himself with his own business. He began to mutter to himself again. After looking deeply at the youth for a long while, Wu Juyo did not continue to follow Su Yi. Instead, he turned around and landed in the forest and began to search for something. Relatively speaking, a treasure that might exist was definitely more important than this youth. In fact, in Wu Juyo's heart, he did not treat Su Yi as a real opponent. Even if his cultivation level was not inferior to his, it was still not enough. This was because Su Yi had the Bawang sect behind him, and he was from the Blood Sun sect. You're not leaving? After Su Yi searched for a while, he realized that Wu Juyo had not left. Looking at the youth's intention, it was obvious that he wanted to interfere and find the weapon spirit. Su Yi frowned. He had wanted to chase him away, but after thinking for a while, he decided against it. It's always faster to search with two people than one. Su Yi made up his mind and ignored Wu Juyo. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, the sun had set and the night had begun to erode the earth. Perhaps it was due to the aura of Su Yi's spiritual liquid, but there were actually quite a number of barbaric beasts gathering here. However, they weren't too strong. Su Yi thought for a moment and used the Origin Supreme technique to subdue all the savage beasts. Then, he ordered them to help him search the surroundings. If there was any news, they would roar to inform him. Not only that, he also found a secluded place and released the group of barbaric beasts from the mysterious space. As a result, the number of people searching for him increased by quite a bit. When the sky had completely darkened, there was no light in the night. Only pairs of glowing eyes could be seen occasionally moving about in the forest like the wind, silently. We should leave after daybreak. If we can't find him, we can only forget about it. Su-yi tightly frowned. He didn't know where the artifact spirit beast had run off to. He had to rush to the Nirvana Dragon stage tomorrow. Otherwise, he would be trapped in the vast spirit's secret realm. Time passed quickly, but there was still no news. This made him a little depressed and annoyed at the same time. If it weren't for sure Su, Hong Jianxiu, and the others from the Heavenly Dipper sect, he probably would have had the chance to obtain the Demon God battlesuit. He wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Sui stopped and stood in the forest. Listening to the sounds of insects around him, he scratched his head and looked melancholy. Roar. Suddenly, a beast's roar broke the silence of the night. It was like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded in the forest. There's a situation. Su-yi's spirit was suddenly lifted. Without thinking, he rushed in the direction of the beast's roar. His speed was extremely fast. He was like a gust of wind as he moved forward rapidly. Su-yi was excited. It was very likely that the artifact spirit beast had appeared again. Roar, roar. As Su-yi hurried on his way, he heard a few more barbarian beasts roaring. However, this time there were cries of agony mixed in with the cries of agony. This made Su-yi's brows knit together even tighter. He couldn't figure out what was going on. He sped up again. After a few dozen breaths, he saw the huge body of a brute demon beast lying in the void. It was the Frost Demon Dragon, one of the brute demon beasts that Su-yi had sent out. At this moment, the Frost Demon Dragon's huge mouth spat out bone-chilling icicles. It was attacking the human figure in front of it. It was Wu Jiuyo from the Blood Sun sect. From Wu Jiuyo's body, streaks of blood-red light were shot out. They were like life-reaping blood blades that wanted to reap lives. Many of the scales on the Frost Dragon's body were shattered, and its flesh was torn apart. It was clearly badly injured, and it was obvious that Wu Jiuyo had killed it. What's going on? When Su-yi arrived, the man and the beast quickly separated from each other in the fierce battle. My lord, I found the beast here. However, it was scared away by this man. The Frost Demon Dragon came to Su-yi's side and hurriedly said, Then why aren't you chasing after it? Su-yi frowned. There was no need to say such a simple thing. The Frost Demon Dragon was actually fighting with Wu Jiuyo here. However, Su-yi had a feeling that things weren't so simple. Master, the little beast was hit by his attack and fell into the valley over there. Under the Frost Demon Dragon's signal, Su-yi saw that there were two cliffs facing each other, not too far away. In the middle was a bottomless valley. After the little beast was hit by Wu Jiuyo, it fell into the valley. I don't dare to go down. There is a demon emperor in the valley. He is very powerful. The Frost Demon Dragon revealed a fearful expression and said to Su-yi. With this, Su-yi finally understood why the Frost Demon Dragon didn't chase after the little beast. Instead, it stopped Wu Jiuyo here. Go and inform the other brute demon beasts to gather nearby. I'll look for you once I'm done. Su-yi softly warned the Frost Demon Dragon, then ordered it to leave this place. You actually tamed that brute demon beast. Wu Jiuyo saw the conversation between Su-yi and the Frost Demon Dragon and couldn't help but feel surprised. However, he wasn't too surprised. After all, there were still some people who could use such means. Su-yi glanced at him indifferently and ignored Wu Jiuyo. Instead, he walked to the side of the cliff and jumped down. Regardless of whether there was a terrifying demon emperor below, he had to find the little beast and obtain the demon god battle armor. Wu Jiuyo's eyes sparkled as he watched Su-yi's actions. After a while, he flew up and headed towards the valley. There really is a demon emperor lying in ambush here. Su Yi's ears were filled with the sound of the wind. Through the Origin Supreme technique, he had indeed identified the aura of a demon emperor. This made him more cautious, and he didn't dare to make too much noise. He raised his head and saw the energy fluctuations above. It turned out that Wu Jiuyo had followed him down. Su Yi was already very impatient with Wu Jiuyo. If there was a chance in the future, he would definitely teach him a lesson. Little beast. As he was descending, Su Yi's eyes suddenly lit up. He saw a flash of light in front of him. It was a very familiar figure of a little beast. Su Yi was pleasantly surprised. He immediately took out a bottle of spiritual liquid from his space bag and pulled out the cork. At the same time, the Origin Supreme technique in his body was quickly activated. An overbearing demon aura quickly spread in the air. Su Yi clearly saw that the little beast in front of him paused for a moment. When it turned around, its little tiger face was first filled with suspicion and interest. Then, it immediately turned into panic and shock. The next moment, the little beast ran away. Its speed was actually 30% faster than before. What's going on? Su Yi was puzzled. The purpose of him activating the Origin Supreme technique was to attract the little beast's attention. His master, Demon the Archlighton, had once said that if he wanted to subdue the Demon God Battle Armor's artifact spirit, he had to rely on the power of the heavenly, Fey ancient scripture. And Su Yi felt that the Origin Supreme technique was much more powerful than the heavenly Fey ancient scripture. It would probably be more effective if he used it. Who would have thought that the little beast would run away with a swish? It seemed to be quite frightened. Don't go. I'm the sect master of Tian Yao School. I'm your master. Follow me, and we will conquer the world together. We will recreate the supreme glory of Tian Yao School 9,000 years ago. Su Yi hurriedly chased after it. He condensed his voice into a line and transmitted it to the little beast through his yuan qi. This method wasn't very clever. If someone deliberately listened along the way, there would be no privacy. It was much worse than the Origin Emperor's transmission method. However, Su Yi only had the little beast in front of him. He wasn't afraid of leaking the secret. Su Yi stopped activating the Origin Supreme technique and switched to the heavenly Fey ancient scripture. Similarly, a ferocious demonic aura was released. But this time, the little beast in front of him gradually slowed down. It looked curiously at the youth who was rapidly approaching it. Leave this place with me. We will rebuild Tian Yao School, and the grudges of the past, I will take them back one by one. Su Yi slowed down his pace and gently walked towards the little beast. At the same time, he spoke. The little beast finally stopped and turned around. Its pair of bright eyes looked curiously at Su Yi. The aura of the youth in front of it felt very unfamiliar. But at the same time, it had a very familiar power that attracted the little beast. It knew that the power was exactly the same as its previous master. It was just that it was a different person. Follow me. Su Yi came to a spot 20 feet away from the little beast. He stopped moving forward and slowly squatted down. He extended his hand to the little beast. The heavenly, Fey, ancient scripture in his body circulated incessantly as a magical power surged, affecting the surrounding space. At that moment, Su Yi didn't want to capture the little beast. He only wanted to take it away. This was because he was the present sect master of Tian Yao School. In other words, he was the theoretical owner of the Fey God Battlesuit. Since his master had said that the heavenly Fey ancient scripture's power could make the Fey God Battlesuit recognize him as its master, Su Yi absolutely believed it. Therefore, all he needed to do was wait for the little beast to sense the heavenly Fey ancient scripture's power and truly acknowledge him. Then he would be done. The little beast carefully stared at Su Yi for a while before it began walking towards him. Chapter 1081. The figure was extremely fast as lightning, like a red bolt of lightning. However, what was even faster was the Yuan Qi light palm that he sent out. Whoosh! The blood-red light palm was extremely bright and dazzling, like an exploding blood moon. It went straight for the little beast, trying to grab it in its hand. Su Yi and little beastie were both concentrating all their attention, and actually couldn't react in time. By the time they realized it, the little beast's body had already been brought back to its master's hand by the light palm. Wu Jiu. Suyi's eyes were extremely gloomy as he looked coldly at the young man who had suddenly appeared. Murderous intent burst out from his body. He knew that this person could ruin his plans. Furthermore, when the ice demon flood dragon found the little beast, it had already been scared away by Wu Jiu. Now, Su-Yi was on the verge of completely subduing the little beast with the heavenly Fey ancient scripture, but someone had interfered and snatched it away. This made Su-Yi furious. Ayo, ayo. In Wu Jiu's hand, the little beast's 4 dragon claws were constantly waving. Its body was twisting, and its expression was uneasy. It looked like it was desperately trying to break free. However, Wu Jiu's hand was like an iron clamp. Under the circulation of his blood-red yuan qi, the little beast was tightly bound, preventing it from escaping. However, the little beast's strength was extremely great. Although it did not have any offensive power, its struggles caused Wu Jiu's strength to become unstable. Su-Yi, I really have to thank you. If not for you, how could I have obtained this artifact spirit? I really don't know what kind of artifact it is to be able to give birth to an artifact spirit. This is probably my greatest gain in the great spirit mystic realm. Wu Jiu held on tightly to the little beast as a smile appeared on his face. He looked at the imposing Su-Yi and said, just as he said, if not for this young man from the Bawang sect, he would have rushed back to the Nirvana Dragon Arena, even if he had such an opportunity. An artifact spirit. At the very least, only artifacts or sacred artifacts could have an artifact spirit, right? Moreover, only a small portion of magic weapons and saint weapons had weapon spirits. Most of them were placed by humans. He had never heard of the appearance of the artifact spirit in his hand before. It was very likely that it was born on its own. From this, one could imagine just how powerful this artifact was. Wu Jiu released the little beast. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Things had already come to this point. Even if Su-Yi was a clay figurine, he would still be somewhat angry. He had already tolerated this Wu Jiu for a long time. However, from the looks of it now, it will be difficult for both sides to reconcile. Ha! I don't believe that you, Su-Yi, can do anything to me. You're just a 17-year-old member of the Bawang sect. Yet, you've managed to bully a motley crew of third-rate forces just because you're talented. Are you really that arrogant? Wu Jiu laughed coldly. He looked at Su-Yi and said coldly, get out of my way now. Otherwise, when you and I get out of the mystic realm, I'll raise your Bawang sect to the ground. As he spoke, the little beast in Wu Jiu's hand continued to struggle. However, it was firmly suppressed by him. Previously, he had been restraining himself and had not attacked in anger because of Su-Yi's words. The main reason was that he wanted to obtain the treasure. Now that he had gotten what he wanted, how could Wu Jiu still be polite to Su-Yi? I hate it when people threaten me. Do you want to raise my Bawang sect to the ground? You'll have to be alive to see it. These words came out of Su-Yi's mouth. In the next moment, his figure suddenly flashed and appeared in front of Wu Jiu in an instant. Overlord Fist. His voice exploded like thunder. The vital chi in his body frantically gathered in front of his fist and then suddenly exploded. A power that could destroy the heavens and earth burst forth, charging towards Wu Jiu. Su-Yi's fist, which was glowing brightly, seemed to swell up. There was a clear sound of wind and thunder, like the sound of thunder, rumbling. It was as if an overlord had awakened, as if an emperor had descended, and a huge pressure spread out, bringing with it a destructive aura. At the same time, there was a feeling of fluctuation in the surrounding space. So strong. Faced with such a scene, Wu Jiu was stunned, but he quickly reacted. A large amount of blood-red light rose from his body. In an instant, it condensed into a huge blood-red light ball in front of him. It was extremely dazzling and looked like a blood sun in the sky. In the blood sun, there was a terrible, murderous intent. It was like the chi of gods and demons was rolling, suppressing all living things and killing them. Bang! In the next moment, Su Yi's huge fist, which was glowing, collided violently with the blood sun. When the two completely different forces collided, they instantly exploded and the energy was wildly released. A huge gust of wind formed a wave of air that shot out like a storm. The strong wind swept out like a storm. Huge rocks were blasted out of the cliff and fell into the abyss. Chi-La. In the terrifying storm, Wu Juyo's figure retreated quickly. In front of his chest, the clothes had been torn apart and there were bloodstains on his chest. He looked a little dismal. Opposite Wu Juyo, the young man's figure was unscathed. "Behave yourself, or I'll kill you with one slap." In Wu Juyo's hand, the small beast was still struggling with all its might. Its strength was so great that it felt like it would break free from his hand at any time. After a cold shout, the small beast did not behave like Wu Juyo had threatened. Instead, it struggled even more violently. This made him furious. Without thinking, he raised his other hand and slapped it down fiercely, wanting to teach the small beast a lesson. However, the moment his palm came into contact with the small beast, a misty light rose from the small beast's body. It was not dazzling, but there was a strong vibration of demon chi. In an instant, Wu Juyo's palm was bounced away, and he almost staggered. His palm felt numb, as if it was going to be crippled. This made Wu Juyo furious. He was about to continue thinking of ways to suppress the small beast when he saw the young man coming at him again. Unknowingly, a rusty broken sword was in Su Yi's hand. "Kill!" Su Yi shouted coldly, the long sword in his hand swinging rapidly, incomparably fast. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 sword rays formed at the same time, giving out a terrifying clang and shaking the void. This sword ray appeared around Wu Juyo, and the tip of the sword were all pointed at him at the same time. Then they brazenly attacked. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. There was a tsunami of sword cries in the sky, as if boiling. The sword rays shuttled back and forth, intertwining with each other and drawing a mysterious trajectory in the air. This was the 13 Gale Swords. Su Yi had just learned it, and it was the first time he used it against an enemy. Wu Juyo's expression changed. Su Yi's sword technique was too powerful, and its grade was definitely extremely high. He held the small beast with one hand and hurriedly dealt with it with the other hand. He did not dare to let his guard down. Chi-La. A muffled sound was heard. The sword ray in front of Wu Juyo flashed and left a deep sword mark on his lower abdomen. Chi-La. Another sword ray attacked. The hair on Wu Juyo's head was sliced by the sword ray, and his hair was instantly scattered. With a pull, the hair floated down from the void. Chi-La. Following that, Wu Juyo felt a chill on his back. Immediately, he saw a sword ray pass through his body and swept out in front of him. Pooh! The streaks of sword light were extremely sharp and fierce. In just a short moment, Wu Juyo's body started to be injured. Moreover, some of the injuries were not light. The crisscrossing sword marks covered his body, causing Wu Juyo's blood to flow. His appearance was extremely miserable. Your cultivation is already very strong, but it's far from enough. Su Yi held the lousy sword in his hand, which was the blood demon god-killing sword that Sure Su spoke of. Strike after strike assaulted like a storm. Needless to say, Wu Juyo's strength was already very strong. His cultivation was also at the second level of the Origin Void stage. Being able to obtain such accomplishments before the age of 30, he could really be proud of himself. But unfortunately, he encountered Su Yi today. Kill. The sword in Su Yi's hand danced into an expanse of light and shadow as he attacked madly. Time and time again, he broke apart the blood-colored radiance before Wu Juyo, and then the sword rays struck his body. How could he be so strong? Wu Juyo was extremely shocked in his heart, but he was unable to think too much about it. His figure retreated again and again, changing from attacking to defending with all his strength, and he no longer went head-on against Su Yi. He knew that as time went on, he would only be at a disadvantage. However, how could Su Yi let him go? The sword rays were like rain as they descended. Seizing the moment, Wu Juyo was absent-minded for a moment. The shadow of a leg stepped down from the sky and brazenly descended onto Wu Juyo's chest, suppressing mountains and rivers with a single kick. When such a loud shout sounded out, Wu Juyo's figure was directly kicked flying. Pooh! As blood gushed out violently, Wu Juyo's chest instantly collapsed, revealing an extremely terrifying depression. Enormous pain assaulted him. At this moment, Wu Juyo only felt that his internal organs were about to explode, and the vital energy, blood, and vital energy in his body instantly became chaotic and became a mess. Only now did Wu Juyo truly realize that there was actually such a terrifying gap between himself and Su Yi. He felt disbelief in his heart. That was clearly only a 17-year-old youth. But how could he be so terrifying? Compared to that, what were the geniuses in the Chaos region? When he fought against Su Yi, he was completely trampled. He could only parry and did not have any power to fight back. Even if the little beast had affected him, it should not have affected him so greatly. Here you go. After Wu Juyo was sent flying by Su Yi's kick, he did not dare to hesitate. He immediately waved his arm and threw the little beast into the abyss below. That strange little beast drew a straight line in the air and quickly descended. When Su Yi saw this, he did not even look at Wu Juyo and chased after it. Chapter 1082. Su Yi, Ba Wang's sect. As he watched Su Yi head deeper into the abyss, Wu Juyo gazed at the direction. Su Yi vanished for a long time as he lightly muttered Su Yi's name. Deep hatred started to brew within Wu Juyo's gaze. That youth had truly surprised him. He was actually strong to such an extent. Not to mention the Chaos region. Even in the entire 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean, it would be difficult to find someone with such natural talent. A 17-year-old at the 2nd level of the Origin Void stage. If news of this were spread out, it would shock countless people. Merely this natural talent would probably cause many experts to be tempted and be willing to foster this youth. So what if his natural talent is good? He has to be alive to grow, Wu Juyo muttered, and his eyes were gloomy to the extreme. Su Yi had relied on his absolute strength to seize the benefits from his hands, and this caused Wu Juyo's hatred to surge to the heavens. That was an artifact spirit, and if he subdued it, he would surely be able to obtain a formidable artifact, and it was very likely to be a magic artifact or even a saint artifact. But now he could only take the initiative to give up, otherwise he would surely die at Su Yi's hands. Cough, cough, cough. Suddenly, Wu Juyo coughed violently, and then he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His face turned deathly pale, just like a dead man. His chest was sunken in extremely frightening, and it almost caused his chest to stick to his back. Wu Juyo took out a medicinal pill from his spatial bag and directly swallowed it without even looking at it, causing another wave of intense pain to come from his chest, causing him to gasp for breath rapidly. After gasping fiercely for a while, Wu Juyo slowly flew up into the sky, and his figure slightly swayed as if he would fall down at any moment. Su Yi, just you wait. Wu Juyo slowly flew away, and only such an indistinct voice was left in the sky before it finally dissipated. In Wu Juyo's opinion, Su Yi was merely a youth from the Bawang sect that didn't have much of a background. Little beast. On the other side, Su Yi chased closely behind the little critter, heading down into the abyss. In fact, it didn't take long before the little beast's wings gently flapped twice. It stabilized its body and floated in the air. Come with me. Su Yi was pleasantly surprised and stretched out a hand. He circulated the Heaven, Fey, Ancient Sutra's powers and constantly attracted the little beast. It seemed that the little beast trusted Su Yi very much after the previous experience. At this time, it didn't hesitate much and jumped onto Su Yi's palm. The spirit of the demon god battle suit. Su Yi placed his palm in front of him and carefully sized up the appearance of the little beast. He couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. A tiger's head, a tortoise's shell, a dragon's claws, and a bird's wings. The characteristics of the four spirits were actually gathered on this little beast's body at the same time. Who knew how this thing was formed? Besides, he had found the little critter, but he had no idea where the main body of the demon god battlesuit was. Little guy, let's continue conquering the world together. The Tian Yao school will definitely reappear in the world and make all our enemies tremble in fear. Su-yi looked at the little beast on his palm and said very seriously. Then, he didn't waste any more time. He closed his eyes and released his soul power to envelop the little beast's body. He wanted to communicate with it and establish a contract-like relationship with it. This was not much different from refining the Golden Scorching Heavens bow, because the Golden Scorching Heavens bow also had spirituality, but it didn't have a spirit like the demon god battlesuit. Huff, huff, huff. As the power between Su-yi and the little beast moved, a hazy light was emitted from the little beast's body. Like flowing water, it wrapped around Su-yi. After a while, Su-yi and the little beast appeared in a magnificent scene, with light shining around them. Not long after, the little beast's body gradually became a little faint. As if it was burning itself, it turned into the most brilliant light and appeared outside Su-yi's body, then went into his body. When the little beast's body completely dissipated, a divine light suddenly rose from Su-yi's body, making him look like a deity. A terrifying power fluctuation was emitted. The fierce light flowed around his body and wandered to every part of his body. Swoosh! In the end, the light disappeared and covered Su-yi's body. A treasure armor with a cold light appeared and covered Su-yi's body completely. Only his hands and head were exposed. When such a treasure armor covered his body, Su-yi felt a strange power flowing around his body and merging with the treasure armor. It turns out that the little beast is not a spirit, but the main body of the demon god battlesuit. Su-yi was pleasantly surprised. He was just thinking that after taming the little beast, he would have to spend some time to find the main body of the demon god battlesuit. Now, it turned out that the little beast was the main body of the demon god battlesuit. It just had a spirituality and seemed to be somewhat different from a spirit. Regarding this, Su-yi was not too sure. He knew very little about these high-end artifacts. What exactly is this thing made of? Su-yi looked at the armor on his body. He felt that the armor was covered with dragon scales. Upon closer inspection, it looked like a turtle shell with mysterious patterns. Su-yi poured his yuan qi into it. In an instant, a strong demonic aura appeared. It was very fierce. I'll slowly study it when I have time. It's time to go to the Nirvana Dragon platform. After studying it for a while, Su-yi withdrew his thoughts. Although he really wanted to study it, he still held back such thoughts. Everything would have to wait until he left the secret realm. With a thought, Su-yi's body flashed with light, and the demon god battlesuit disappeared without a trace. Su-yi was pleasantly surprised by such a function. It was really too convenient. He could control it at will. At this moment, Su-yi could clearly feel that there was a life aura in his body that was tightly connected to him. The demon god battlesuit was not an inanimate object. It was more like a life that was hibernating in his body. Little human, you dare to intrude into this emperor's territory. Just as Su-yi was recollecting his thoughts, a cold shout came from below, causing Su-yi to be startled. He just remembered that there was a very powerful demon emperor in this abyss. Su-yi did not dare to tarry. He directly flew up and rushed to the top of the canyon. Boom, boom, boom. Su-yi's speed was extremely fast, but the attack below was even faster. A terrifying roar reverberated through the air, and a streak of crimson light shot out from the darkness below, crushing the void, and went against the sky, chasing after Su-yi. This waterfall was extremely terrifying. The aura on it seemed to be able to crush everything. Facing such a terrifying attack, Su-yi's scalp went numb. He was only at the origin void realm. If he was hit by this demon emperor's attack, the result would definitely be death. Demon god battlesuit. Su-yi did not need to think. He directly shouted and summoned the demon god battlesuit that he had just obtained. The instant before the attack landed, his entire body was wrapped in tight armor. Boom! The next moment, Su-yi only felt a terrifying force blast his body. His body shot up into the sky like a cannonball. It was unbelievably fast. From afar, this scene looked like a shooting star shooting backward. After flying out of the cliff, Su-yi did not know how many miles into the sky before he stabilized himself. What a powerful demon emperor! Su-yi still had lingering fear in his heart as he looked down. The strength of the demon emperor just now was probably at the third level of the demon emperor realm. It would not take much effort for him to kill Su-yi. After a moment of lingering fear, Su-yi put away the demon god battlesuit. Then, he carefully checked his body and found that he was not injured at all. Under the impact of the terrifying force, some of his chi and blood were shaken. The primordial chi in his body was not very stable. It's so powerful. Su-yi was inexplicably surprised. The demon god battlesuit was so useful. Then, he was extremely happy. However, it was obvious that he had used up a lot of primordial chi to summon the demon god battlesuit to block the attack. It seemed that the demon god battlesuit was very useful, but it also consumed a lot of primordial chi. If an ordinary person with the same cultivation level as Su-yi wore the demon god battlesuit, he would probably not be able to withstand the attack of that level more than a few times. However, Su-yi was not particularly worried about this. He had cultivated the great void spirit sea, and the primordial chi in his body was much stronger than that of ordinary people. It's time to go. This trip to the secret realm of ominous spirits was about to come to an end. The only thing left was the competition at the Nirvana Dragon Arena. Su-yi felt that he had to go and see the situation before deciding whether to go up and compete. After all, some benefits did not mean much to him. However, he had gained a lot from this trip to the secret realm. The elixirs were nothing. The biggest benefit was definitely the other inheritance left behind by the headmaster of the Tian Yao school. It was the demon refining array and the demon god battlesuit. If either of these two items were taken out, it would probably cause the major forces in the outside world to fight to the death. After all, it was something that belonged to the Tian Yao school 9,000 years ago. Even the sacred mountain and other forces could not resist such a temptation. However, Su-yi also knew that these two items were not something that ordinary people could obtain. Otherwise, the 10 major forces of the Alliance of Chaos would not have discovered the existence of the mysterious gate illusory spirit world after occupying the secret realm of ominous spirits for so many years. It could only be said that all of this was an opportunity. Swoosh! Su-yi did not stay there for long. He quickly flew to a distance and then descended from the sky. He concealed his aura, afraid that he would disturb the Demon King and attract another attack. He came to the mountain forest and met up with the Ice Demon Dragon and the other barbaric beasts. He brought them all into the mysterious space. After that, Su-yi set off and rushed toward the Nirvana Dragon Arena. The night was very dark. The young man's figure flew over the mountain forest, and an invisible aura fluctuated from his body. Chapter 1083. Su-yi traveled through the secret realm at an extremely fast speed. However, it still took him nearly a day to reach the center of the secret realm, where the Nirvana Dragon platform was located. After finding the flaming winged devil tiger nearby, Su-yi went to the Nirvana Dragon platform. Look, it's Su-yi from the Bawang sect. He's here too. When Su-yi appeared, many people immediately let out a few cries. He actually came out alive. I thought he would die in the secret realm. A disciple from second-rate force said faintly. He's still very strong. At the very least, he's not weaker than an outstanding disciple from a second-rate force. Someone chimed in, thinking that Su-yi was not weak. I wonder if he gained any great benefits in the secret realm. Then, someone else said. Su-yi listened to these words, but did not pay much attention to them. After looking around the crowd, he quickly found Jihan Aw and the other people from the Xinjiang sect. In addition, the Six Unity sect and Chun Chu and were also present. Su-yi, you're here. Brother Su-yi, are you all right? When these people saw Su-yi, they immediately surrounded him and looked at him with excitement. The Nirvana Dragon platform is about to open. Why did you come so late? I thought something had happened to you. Lin Donghao stepped forward and said. Chin Chu and the others nodded. I just had some unfinished business, so I was delayed for a while. Su Yi smiled and did not explain anything. It's good that you're here. Let's wait for the Nirvana Dragon platform to open. The people around him did not ask much and just said faintly. Su Yi observed for a while. There were originally 20 people from the Xinjiang sect, but now there were only 13 left. The remaining 7 people must have died in the secret realm. 4 of them died in the Mystic Soul formation. In addition, there were only 11 people from the Six Unity sect who had gathered here. This showed that there were still great dangers in the secret realm of ominous spirits. While there were benefits, there were also people who would die and never be able to walk out. However, Su Yi was relieved that Chen Chun, Shun Hong, and Yi Haokong, the 3 rogue cultivators, were all here. The second-rate forces seemed to have lost a lot of people too. Su Yi looked around and looked at the other forces around him. He realized that the 7 second-rate forces had lost about 5 to 10 people each, and the Heavenly Dipper sect had suffered the most casualties. Even their young master, Hong Jinxiu, had died in Su Yi's hands. What about the first-rate forces? Su Yi did not pay too much attention to it. Instead, he turned his attention to the lineup of the 3 first-rate forces. Before he had the chance to look, he was Jiu. Jiu. Su Yi rubbed his nose and his brows gradually furrowed. He felt that he must have done something wrong in his past life to know such a woman. Every time they met, Su Yi was always the one who was tricked. This made him feel helpless. In the crowd of Ash Cloud Palace, Sure Susu had already changed into a woman's attire at some point in time. She looked at Su Yi coldly, as if her gaze could kill. Junior sister, do you know Su Yi? A young man in his late 20s was surprised when he saw her expression. He immediately asked Sure Susu. This man was none other than Qin Yusheng, who was second only to Sure Susu in the Green Cloud Palace. He was also at the second-level Origin Void stage and was slightly stronger than Sure Susu. I don't know him, Sure Susu replied coldly when she heard Qin Yusheng's question. She turned around and no longer looked at Su Yi. She ignored Qin Yusheng as well. Qin Yusheng was even more curious about this. He could not help but look deeply at Su Yi. Seeing that the youngster was also looking at him, Qin Yusheng nodded and gave him a smile. Wouldn't the world be peaceful if everyone could be like this? Su Yi muttered. He felt that Qin Yusheng's attitude was not bad. At the very least, he was not overbearing like the disciples of the other powers. As for whether the smile was real or fake, Su Yi felt it was not important. He did not want to be friends with Qin Yusheng. So long as others did not offend him, then everything would be fine. Wu Jiuyu hasn't rushed over yet. Su Yi looked at the Blood Sun sect again. He did not see Wu Jiuyu's figure among the dozens of disciples there. Obviously, that young man was absolutely heavily injured. Otherwise, with his cultivation, he would have been able to rush over. Looks like the situation I learned at the beginning was not bad. After everyone enters the secret realm, they'll be scattered in different areas according to their strength. Soon we noticed that the first-rate powers had suffered great losses as well. Each of them originally had 80 disciples that entered the secret realm, but in the end, there would still be over 10 people that were unable to reach here. Su Yi only understood a little about this and did not pay too much attention to it. However, at this time, many people were quietly observing him. Among them, there were a few who had the most complicated expressions. They were Sang Ming from the Darking sect, Ruan Zhuo from the Jade Tripod clan, Shang Wangqin from the Boundless Palace, and Shui Yuechan from the Purple Shadow Tower. Sang Ming and Su Yi had fought before, and Ruan Zhuo had suffered in Su Yi's hands. Both of them were wary of the youth. In addition, Shang Wangqin and Shui Yuechan had seen with their own eyes that the people from the Heavenly Dipper sect were killed one by Su Yi. They did not even have the slightest ability to resist. Therefore, in the hearts of these two people, this youth was absolutely unfathomable. Brother Su Yi, do you plan to fight for this Nirvana Dragon stage? At this time, Yuan Xuan from the Xinjiang sect came to Su Yi's side and asked. He turned his head and looked at a place not far away. Sui also followed Yu Wenxuan's gaze and saw a tall black shadow. It was like a towering mountain that pierced through the clouds. Is this the Nirvana Dragon stage? Sui raised his head to look, only to feel a vast and majestic aura rushing towards him, making him feel as if he was looking up at a tall mountain. The Nirvana Dragon stage was the last opportunity in the secret realm of vast spirits. All participants could go and fight for it. However, everyone knew that only the strongest young experts would be able to gain a firm foothold and obtain the final benefits. The Nirvana Dragon stage has not been opened yet, so there are no energy fluctuations. It is said that after it is opened, it will be extremely majestic. Yu Wenxuan continued, with Brother Su Yi's strength, you can definitely fight for it. Other than the strongest disciples from the first-rate forces, many people from the second-rate forces will also go and fight for it. Yu Wenxuan didn't know Su Yi's true strength. He only felt that this young man was definitely not weaker than the strongest disciples from the second-rate forces. Therefore, he only said that Su Yi had a chance to fight for it, but he didn't think that he would definitely be able to take down a level. Let's wait and see. If there is a chance, I will go and try. Sui smiled and said lightly. He knew that the Nirvana Dragon stage had a total of 10 levels. Each level would have a powerful pressure on them. Moreover, the higher one went, the stronger the pressure. Those who were not strong enough would be severely injured and vomit blood until they fell off the Nirvana Dragon stage. Not only that, but after entering the stage, one would have to face fierce battles with other experts. This was because only one person was allowed to occupy each level of the Nirvana Dragon stage. The 10 people who reached the end would be recognized as the strongest prodigies in the entire Chaos realm. Rumble. Just as the two of them were talking, a huge roar came from the Nirvana Dragon stage. The Nirvana Dragon stage is opening, someone exclaimed. Then, the venue began to boil. This was the last grand event, so everyone was looking forward to it. Under their gazes, they saw a thick thunderbolt falling from the sky above the mountain-like Nirvana Dragon stage. When it hit the Nirvana Dragon stage, it instantly exploded. In an instant, the entire Nirvana Dragon stage was bathed in thunder and lightning. Bursts of thunderous roars made people's scalps tingle. The momentum was terrifying. Walala. After the thunderbolt fell, a scarlet flame appeared. It began to burn from the ground and went all the way up to the highest point of the Nirvana Dragon stage. One could clearly feel that the temperature of the flame at the highest point was absolutely terrifying. Even the space was slightly distorted by the heat. Heavenly lightning and earthly fire appeared one after another. Other scenes soon followed. Chi-chi-chi, buzz-buzz-buzz. Not long after, a strong wind blew in the air and lingered on the Nirvana Dragon stage. It turned into a wind and danced on the Nirvana Dragon stage like a knife. Then, green water-attributed light flashed. It turned into raindrops and converged into rivers. It was ever-changing as it shuttled back and forth on the Nirvana Dragon stage. There was a strange pitch-black soil that emitted a heavy aura. From the soil, green saplings rose from the ground and grew rapidly. It was like a dream. At the same time, one could see the power of the metal attribute flowing. It released a sharp aura that was hidden in the nothingness. All these scenes revolved around the Nirvana Dragon stage, making it look incomparably mysterious. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and thunder. The 7 attributes have come to life. Su Yi observed quietly. Seeing the terrifying scene, he was also very shocked. The heavenly lightning, earthly fire, and other wonders were extremely powerful and visually impactful. This power seemed to be tempering the Nirvana Dragon platform. After about an incense stick's worth of time, all of this power disappeared. The Nirvana Dragon stage, which was originally pitch black like a mountain, began to emit a misty light. It was sparkling and translucent like jade. Invisibly, one could feel a strange power flowing within. Even from a distance, one could feel a huge pressure. Many young disciples' breathing became hurried when they saw this scene. Chapter 1084. What a spectacular Nirvana Dragon platform. If you really want to step on it, stand on the upper level. Even the lowest level will do. That is the place where only supreme talents are qualified to stand. Among the crowd, hundreds of young experts raised their heads to look at the vast Nirvana Dragon arena, their eyes filled with yearning. Everyone knew that those who could step on the platform were the absolute powerhouses of the younger generation. There were only 10 spots, and it was not something that anyone could touch. The true supreme talent battle is about to begin. Someone murmured the words in agitation, while the Nirvana Dragon platform opened in the secret realm of ominous spirits. The huge square in 9-Star City was abuzz with noise. Everyone was watching the scene on the light screen, and their eyes were blazing with passion. The Alliance Conference had reached this stage, and everyone was paying attention to the true supreme talent battle. They all wanted to see who would become the absolute powerhouse in this generation of the Chaos Zone. It was obvious that those people would become the absolute overlords of the Chaos Zone in the next few decades. Why isn't Wu Jiuyo here? While everyone was excited, Elder Bai, who was in a green robe, suddenly frowned on the Blood Sun sect stand. He didn't see Wu Jiuyo's figure on the light screen, which made him feel uneasy. Under normal circumstances, everyone would gather at the destination before the Nirvana Dragon platform opened. If they were too late, they might miss the opportunity to leave the secret realm. Unless they were dead, no one would waste their time. Elder Bai, calm down. This is a competition between the younger generation. No matter what happened to Wu Jiuyo, don't worry. Elder Tang, who was in a black robe from 9-Star Valley, said with a chuckle. Elder Bai's face darkened when he heard that. Those words were too familiar. Elder Bai had said the same thing about Elder Wu when Su Yi had killed Hong Jinxiu, the young sect master of Tiangang's sect. He had been watching the show and hadn't expected to be rebutted. Bring someone outside the secret realm. Get the news as soon as possible and report back. Elder Bai ordered a person beside him with a gloomy face. The person immediately stood up and left. Elder Bai did not care whether others laughed at him or not. Wu Jiuyo was the most outstanding disciple of the Blood Sun sect. If anything were to happen to him in the mystic realm, he would not be able to answer to the sect master. Therefore, he had to get to the bottom of this. Seeing this, the surrounding people chuckled and gloated. Their important disciples had all safely arrived at the Nirvana Dragon platform. If Wu Jiuyo really died in the secret realm, then the Blood Sun sect would definitely become a huge joke. Even the strongest expert of a first-rate force couldn't walk out alive. They could only become a joke. Prepare to ascend the Nirvana Dragon platform. Inside the vast spirit's secret realm, when the huge commotion on the Nirvana Dragon platform subsided, the crowd began to clamor. Soon, people from the 3 first-rate forces stepped into the air and flew toward the Nirvana Dragon platform. Shi Susu, Qin Yusheng, Jing Qiran, Chao Yunfei, and Fu Dongxian, these 5 people can definitely each occupy a floor. The most interesting thing between them is their respective rankings. As they watched the figures fly into the sky, someone's eyes flickered as he muttered. In fact, it wasn't just these 5 people. More disciples from the first-rate forces were moving together. Given their strength, they had no hope of competing for the upper floors of the Nirvana Dragon platform, but they could rely on the lower floors. After all, many of them were on par with the strongest disciples of the second-rate forces. I heard that in the previous Alliance conventions, the Nirvana Dragon platform was once occupied by the 3 first-rate forces. None of the remaining second-rate forces stood until the end. As for the third-rate forces, it seems that no one has succeeded so far. Lin Donghao stood beside Su Yi and said softly, "The first-rate forces are too strong. This is a very normal result." Su Yi nodded to show that he understood. Those people from the second-rate forces will soon try to ascend the platform. Lin Donghao continued, "If I'm strong enough, I can occupy a floor of the Nirvana Dragon platform. At that time, the disciples of my 6 Unity sect will also obtain great opportunities." There was a strong yearning in his words, but more than that, it was a sigh. The disciples of the third-rate forces would basically be reduced to spectators. Can people bring people up to the Nirvana Dragon platform? Su-yi raised his eyebrows and asked doubtfully. From Lin Donghao's words, it seemed that the person standing at the end could still allow outsiders to step on the platform. Su-yi didn't understand this at all. Yes. Lin Donghao nodded affirmatively and said, you can bring people up to each floor of the Nirvana Dragon platform. You can bring one person on the first floor, 2 on the second floor, and 10 on the highest floor. This is permitted by the Alliance. The rules of the Nirvana Dragon platform will also change when the time comes. The main force will be exerted on the main person, regardless of whether it's pressure or benefits. In addition, others can also obtain a small portion of the opportunities after going up. But this small portion is already terrifying enough for most of the cultivators below the 7th or 8th level of Yuan Jin realm. Brother Lin is right. It's a pity that we're not strong enough. Otherwise, we would definitely go up and fight for it. This will bring great benefits to the sect in the next few decades. By the side, Yuan Xuan also added. At the same time, there was a trace of a bitter smile from the corners of his mouth. They were indeed powerful among the third-rate forces, but if they dared to go up to the Nirvana Dragon platform, it would be tantamount to asking for a beating. Not to mention the others, the suppressive force of the Nirvana Dragon platform itself was enough to make them suffer. I see. Su-yi nodded. Only now did he know there was such a rule. He could see that both Yuan Xuan and Lin Donghao really wanted to get a place. First of all, they could obtain unimaginable benefits. Second of all, if they could bring a few of their fellow disciples up to the platform, they could create more experts for the sect. Of course, they knew that this was just wishful thinking. All these could only be obtained with absolute strength. If I can get the first floor of the Nirvana Dragon platform, doesn't that mean I can get 10 places? Suddenly, Su-yi's eyes lit up as he muttered to himself. One place can be sold for 35,000 2-star origin stones. 10 places would be 300,000 to 500,000 1-star origin stones, which is equivalent to 30 to 50 million 1-star origin stones. I'm one step closer to clearing my debt. Su-yi's eyes lit up as he muttered to himself. He even started to count with his fingers. The more he counted, the more excited he became. He owed the Spirit Treasure Pavilion 1 billion origin stones, and now he had only paid back a fraction of it. Seeing that there was not much time left in a year, Su-yi was still having a headache. If he could really get to the first floor of the Nirvana Dragon platform and sell the places, just thinking about it made Su-yi's heart blossom with joy. Su-yi, why are you smiling foolishly? Suddenly, Ji Hanua stared at him with a puzzled look and asked. She looked at Su-yi's silly look, licking his lips and swallowing saliva from time to time. She felt very strange. Nothing. Su-yi quickly shut his mouth and replied awkwardly. You scoundrel, don't tell me you're thinking about something strange again? Ji Hanua's face suddenly turned red. While no one was paying attention, she stretched out her slender hand to Su-yi's waist and suddenly twisted. Ow! Su-yi howled miserably and jumped up as if his butt was on fire. That's Su-yi, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Why is he screaming? I'm afraid he wants to make his presence known. That's right. In front of the geniuses of the first and second-rate forces, he's not as popular as before. Su-yi's scream attracted the attention of the surrounding disciples. They were looking at the Nirvana Dragon platform excitedly as Shursusu and the others began to climb. Suddenly, they were frightened by the scream. So how could they be good-tempered? Brother Su-yi, are you all right? Yuan Xuan, Lin Bingyao, Chun Chuan, and the others all rubbed their heads. Su-yi's scream was so penetrating that it made their heads hurt. I'm fine, Su-yi said with an embarrassed smile, his face twisted in pain. At the same time, he felt very innocent. He was just settling a score. So how could he be sneakily attacked by Ji Hanua? Also, wasn't this lass usually very gentle? Today, she really hit him hard. Su-yi thought that if it weren't for the things that happened in the secret territory, he would definitely have fallen out with her. You look terrible. Do you have something to say to us? Yuan Xuan and the others looked at him strangely, but they didn't ask anything. Bad guy. Ji Hanua snorted softly and turned her head away from Su-yi. She just thought of the last time they left the phantom spirit boundary. Su-yi swallowed his saliva in the cave. Now he was licking his lips and swallowing his saliva. He definitely wasn't thinking of anything good. I'm innocent. Su-yi wanted to cry, but no tears came out. How could he explain this matter? He could only suffer in silence. Silently rubbing his waist, Su-yi grimaced. It seems that this quota can't be sold. Su-yi suddenly shook his head. He was confident that he could take the highest Nirvana Dragon platform, but the 10 quotas probably couldn't be sold. After all, the people who came here were all young disciples. Very few of them could take out so many vitality stones at once. They probably didn't have enough resources to use. Su-yi thought of selling it cheaper, but that wouldn't make much sense. Chapter 1085. It had to be said that Su-yi's scream had indeed attracted a lot of attention. Many people secretly mocked and ridiculed him. They felt that this young man was probably among the experts of the first and second-rate forces and felt a little unbalanced. So he came here to find a sense of presence. It was normal for Su-yi, who had shown in the preliminaries, to feel a sense of loss in front of these outstanding talents. However, the battle on the Nirvana Dragon platform was still the most important, so everyone planned to turn back and continue watching. However, at this moment, a figure appeared in the distance and flew towards the Nirvana Dragon platform, instantly attracting the attention of many people. Look, it seems to be Blood Sun Sect's Wu Jiuyo. Someone shouted and pointed at the flying figure in the air. It's really him. He made it in time. Some of the Blood Sun Sect's disciples were happy. Like the people from other forces, they had thought that Wu Jiuyo had died in the secret realm. If that was the case, the Blood Sun sect would have suffered a great loss. Now, the number one expert of their sect's younger generation had returned. Many people looked over and saw that Wu Jiuyo had flown over without using Yuan Qi to transform. He was undoubtedly at the Origin Void stage. He actually dares to appear at this time. Su-yi also turned his head, and his brows gradually furrowed. Previously, he had wanted to kill Wu Jiuyo. Only he knew that he had obtained the artifact Spirit Beast. If he could kill Wu Jiuyo, then this secret could be hidden, and it would save him a lot of trouble. He definitely doesn't know that it's the demon god battlesuit. Su-yi furrowed his brows, deep in thought. This was not a good place to make a move. There were colorful stones all around. Obviously, everything that happened here would be transmitted back to Nine-Star City. Moreover, the disciples of all the major forces were here. If he killed Wu Jiuyo here, the experts of the Blood Sun sect would most likely surround him outside the secret realm. He still had a chance to fight for a second-rate force like the Heavenly Dipper sect. But if there was another first-rate force, Su-yi shook his head, thinking that he might die a horrible death. Fortunately, although the small beast was extraordinary, it didn't reveal its true form. No one knew that it was the demon god battlesuit from the Tianyao school 9,000 years ago. Otherwise, once this news was leaked out, Su-yi would die even if he had 100 lives. Let's play it by ear. Su-yi frowned as he looked deeply at the figure that was about to reach the Nirvana Dragon platform and murmured, "Hey, look at that Su-yi's expression." At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. As his voice fell, everyone turned their heads in unison and saw the young man's face. He actually showed such an expression to Wu Jiuyo. Is he looking for trouble? So many geniuses have already attracted everyone's attention. Now that another one has come, Su-yi won't even have a chance. He's probably feeling very depressed. A small Bawang sect dares to compare himself with the number one genius of the younger generation of the Blood Sun sect? Who does he think he is? In fact, he has successfully attracted our attention, but he's just like a clown. Voices of mockery and ridicule spread through the crowd. Most of them came from the first and second-rate forces. They had heard of Su-yi's deeds, but they all thought that this young man was just SOSO. After all, he was still so young. It's not good to be fierce in a third-rate force. Look at him now, when he's facing a first-rate and second-rate force. He's immediately terrified. Someone laughed out loud. feeling as if they were really looking at a clown who was trying to please the crowd. A bunch of idiots. Su Yi didn't care much about how these people looked at him. In fact, from his point of view, the real idiots were those who wantonly mocked him. Wu Jiuyo is here. He should be going straight to the Nirvana Dragon platform. Soon, the figure in the sky came close. Everyone thought that since the other disciples of the first-rate forces had already stepped onto the Nirvana Dragon platform and started to fight, Wu Jiuyo definitely had no reason to delay. However, the reality was quite different from what they had imagined. After Wu Jiuyo flew over, he suddenly stopped and stared down with murderous intent rising from his body. Sui. He clenched his teeth tightly and clenched his fists as he looked at the young man in the crowd. It took him more than a day to reach the Nirvana Dragon platform. However, his injuries were still very serious, which would be very disadvantageous for the upcoming battle. Do you want to kill me? Feeling the aura on Wu Jiuyo's body, Su Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. He directly stepped into the air and stood in front of Wu Jiuyo. Su Yi felt that if this person really wanted to kill him, there was absolutely no reason for him to let him live. Su Yi did not want to provoke the Blood Sun sect, but if it really came to that, he was not afraid. I don't believe that you dare to make a move here. Wu Jiuyo's eyes were gloomy like a knife, wanting to cut Su Yi into pieces. He really did not believe that Su Yi would dare to make a move on him after reaching the Nirvana Dragon platform. Firstly, there were dozens of disciples of the Blood Sun sect here, and there was another Origin Void Realm expert beside him. How could Su Yi win by himself? In addition, everything here must have been projected in 9-Star City. If he really had an accident here, the Blood Sun sect would definitely not let this kid off. Do you think I don't dare? Su Yi's face suddenly darkened, and a fierce aura arose from his body. Suddenly, like a turbid wave, it swept towards Wu Jiuyo. There seemed to be a terrifying dragon dancing in the air, bringing with it an unparalleled brazen aura that directly pressed down on Wu Jiuyo. Ugh! Under this terrifying aura, Wu Jiuyo's previously sunken chest, which had now recovered, let out a muffled groan. He only felt a sweetness in his throat, but he forced it down. Even so, under the pressure of Su Yi's aura, Wu Jiuyo was forced to retreat more than 10 feet in the air before he regained his footing. However, at this time, his face was as pale as a sheet of white paper. Wu Jiuyo. Seeing this scene, the disciples of the various sects who were watching below were all stunned. Their faces were filled with disbelief. What did they just see? Wu Jiuyo actually retreated more than 10 feet in front of Su Yi. What was going on? Many people from the first and second-rate forces were all dumbfounded at this time. Su Yi, who had been mocked and ridiculed by them, was actually so strong. CN version N asterisk. What? Origin Void Realm. Su Yi is also at the Origin Void Realm. Someone murmured, his voice filled with incomparable shock. As soon as this was said, there was a sound of cold air being sucked in. Everyone then realized that the young man was actually flying and did not rely on his primordial chi to transform. Such a method showed that Su Yi was also at the Origin Void Realm. Such a result was hard for many to accept. How is this possible? Someone's throat moved, unable to believe what he saw. But before they could think more, Su Yi, who was in midair, directly moved. The young man's figure flashed and rushed towards Wu Jiuyo. Su Yi, I will never let you off. Wu Jiuyo roared in a low voice, then ran to the side. He did not dare to collide with Su Yi. The strength of the two had already been determined earlier, and he, Wu Jiuyo, was far from being a match for Su Yi. Coupled with the fact that he had yet to recover from his serious injuries, once they fought, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. I would like to see how you are going to not let me off. Su Yi snorted coldly and began his pursuit. Beneath his feet, the Fuyao Hunter transformation steps continuously moved. Every step seemed to have some kind of unique rhythm, causing his body to be like a ghost, and his speed was extremely fast. Swoosh, Su Yi punched out, and a huge fist of light was like a huge rock across the sky, making a rumbling sound as it charged towards Wu Jiuyo. After all, Wu Jiyo was also an elite at the Origin Void Realm. Although he was seriously injured, he was not completely helpless. He turned around and shot out a blood-red light, shattering the Fist of Light, and then continued to escape. Under such circumstances, the two of them, one chasing and one fleeing, attracted the attention of all the disciples present. Wu Jiyo, someone opened his mouth but did not know what to say. Su-yi is even stronger than Wu Jiyo. In the end, everyone had to admit what they saw. Wu Jiyo was clearly being chased by Su-yi, and he did not dare to stop and fight back. Was the gap between the two of them so big? Gulp. Someone swallowed a mouthful of saliva, feeling his cheeks burning. Previously, there were many people who thought that Su-yi was trying to please the crowd with Claptrap, and they treated him as a disgusting clown. However, what was happening before their eyes was like a resounding slap on their faces, slapping them so hard that they became numb. How is this a clown? This is definitely a terrifying dragon crossing the river, someone said in horror. Looking at the figure chasing in the sky, the shock on his face could not recede for a long time. Su-yi's strength seemed to have broken the pattern of the previous Alliance conference in the Chaos region. He definitely had the ability to compete at the Nirvana Dragon Arena, and even fight for a higher-level seat. Realizing such a result, the disciples felt that their worldview had been refreshed today. Brother Su-yi, when did he reach the Origin Void Realm? Not only the Origin Void Realm, but he is even stronger than Wu Jiyo. Xinjian sect, Liu sect, Chun Shu, and the others all looked up at the sky, their faces filled with horror. Chapter 1086. On the Nirvana Dragon platform, Shi Susu, Qin Yusheng, Jing Churan, Chao Yunfei, and Fu Dongxian, the 5 powerful disciples of first-rate forces, had begun to climb up the platform with many other figures. The terrifying power of the Nirvana Dragon platform poured down on them. Everyone was emitting a terrifying aura as they moved forward, shocking everyone. However, none of the hundreds of disciples below were paying attention to the situation on the Nirvana Dragon platform. Everyone was focused on the pursuit behind them. Su-yi's performance shocked everyone. Even Shang Wangchun, Shui Yuechan, and a few others who knew him could not hide the astonishment on their faces. I really didn't expect that Su-yi is stronger than Wu Jiyo. In the 9-star city, countless people who were watching the light screen were shocked to the extreme. At the very beginning, they had seen Su-yi display the ability to fly in the air. After Shi Susu entered the cold pond, they knew that he had already broken through the Origin Void stage. However, what they did not expect was that the young man from the Bawang sect was chasing Wu Jiyo. Wu Jiyo is completely at a disadvantage. The two of them are not on the same level. The two of them seem to have a grudge in the secret territory, so they are fighting as soon as they meet. Wu Jiyo seems to be seriously injured. Do you think it has something to do with Su-yi? Maybe he rushed to the Nirvana Dragon platform at the last moment because of that young man. In the huge square, people from various forces were discussing heatedly. The confrontation between the two of them even overshadowed the situation on the Nirvana Dragon platform. In the stands, the green-robed elder by the Blood Sun sect had a deep look in his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. He waved his hand to summon an expert of the Blood Sun sect and whispered something in his ear. Then, the expert quickly left. This young man's talent is outstanding. If it wasn't for the grudge between him and the Sacred Mountain, I'm afraid all the forces would be fighting over him. In the middle of the stands, Elder Xie of the Blue Cloud Hall said softly, full of emotion. Beside him, Elder Tang of the 9-Star Valley also nodded. In fact, they were very tempted and wanted to take the young man as their disciple. However, after thinking about it and weighing the pros and cons, they could not make the final decision. The Sacred Mountain could not step into the territory of the Chaos Zone. However, if they really wanted to deal with one person, neither the Blue Cloud Hall nor the 9-Star Valley could suppress the might of the Sacred Mountain. Let's wait and see, Elder Xie thought. In front of the Nirvana Dragon arena, Su-Yi was closely chasing after Wu Jiuyo. He struck out with his palm, sending out blazing fire attribute energy. Wu Jiuyo dodged with all his might, but he was still unable to dodge all of it. He was struck in the back by a palm of light. His body suddenly fell forward. With a wah sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face instantly turned ashen. Wu Jiuyo's sect, and Li and Yong's and Yong, and Yusu and sect. Of the Init Yutu and was in Yi's and kill. A clear and cold shout came from Su-Yi's mouth. His footsteps seemed to be following some kind of unique rhythm. His body was like a ghost, drifting unpredictably as he charged towards Wu Jiuyo once again. Another terrifying fist of light was shot out. It was so powerful that it could topple mountains and overturn seas. It caused the space to tremble and make a loud, rumbling sound. Wu Jiuyo did not dare to delay. He circulated the power in his body to the extreme and rushed toward the Nirvana Dragon platform with all his might. As an Origin Void Stage expert, Wu Jiuyo was very fast. In just a moment, he was already 100 feet away from the Nirvana Dragon platform. When Su-Yi's fist arrived, Wu Jiuyo also shot out a blood-colored light ball that had been brewing for a long time. When the two collided, there was a sudden explosion. The terrifying energy set off a destructive storm that swept across the sky and the ground. Puff! Under the impact of the storm, Wu Jiuyo spat out another mouthful of blood. However, with the help of the rebounding force, he crossed 100 feet in an instant and rushed into the Nirvana Dragon platform. Wu Jiuyo knew very well that if he did not try to avoid Su-Yi's attack, he would probably die in his hands. This was the secret realm of ominous spirits. Unless he did not want to leave, there was nowhere to escape. Su-Yi was stunned by the scene in front of him. Wu Jiuyo had actually rushed up to the Nirvana Dragon arena in an attempt to evade his pursuit. "Can I kill you in the Nirvana Dragon platform?" He sneered and took a step forward, charging forward. There was an incomparably majestic object there. It was like a mountain, but it was sparkling and translucent, as if it was made of jade. Even from a distance, Su-Yi could feel a powerful aura emanating from the Nirvana Dragon platform. Energy of various attributes existed. Even if he stood nearby, he would have to circulate the Yuan Qi in his body to resist. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be for someone with insufficient cultivation to stand below the Nirvana Dragon platform. Su-Yi has stepped onto the Nirvana Dragon platform. Under the gazes of hundreds of people below, the young man took a step forward and appeared at the foot of the magnificent mountain. Compared to the Nirvana Dragon platform, he seemed extremely small. I didn't expect him to be at the Yuan Void stage. As long as there are no accidents, there will be a place for him on the Nirvana Dragon platform. I just don't know which level he will reach in the end. After the constant ridicule at the beginning, everyone was looking forward to seeing how far Su-Yi would go in the end. He is stronger than Wu Jiuyo. He has a good chance of reaching the top 5 levels. Someone thought for a while and said in a deep voice, "Brother Su-Yi, do your best." Yu Wenxuan, Lin Bingyao, Lin Donghao, Chun Shu-en, and the others in the Xinjian sects and Liu's sects lineup saw Su-Yi's figure stepping onto the Nirvana Dragon arena. They couldn't help but recover from their shock. The towering Nirvana Dragon platform had a total of 10 levels. It looked like a mountain that had been cut out by a knife. Between each level, there was a wide jade staircase connecting them. There were at least a few hundred steps, just like the stone staircase used to climb the mountain. Boom! The moment Su-Yi stepped onto the first jade staircase, a majestic force suddenly pressed down on his body. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him, or as if thousands of lakes and seas were pouring down, causing Su-Yi's body to sink down. What a powerful force. No wonder it is called the Nirvana Dragon platform. Su-Yi's heart shook as he muttered to himself. However, this was only the first jade staircase. The Yuan Qi in his body circulated slightly and offset the enormous force. He looked up and saw that Wu Jiuyo had already stepped on dozens of jade staircases in front of him. Above him, Shi Susu, Qin Yusheng and the others had already passed the first level of the Nirvana Dragon platform and were heading higher. They were all existences of the Origin Void stage. Their goal was the highest few levels. There were many figures between these two groups. They were all disciples of first-class forces, but their speed was too slow. Some of them were even about to be overtaken by Wu Jiuyo. "Since I'm here, let's go." He straightened his face and took another step. He did not intend to step onto the Nirvana Dragon platform immediately. He only wanted to find out what the final benefits were. After all, many things were no longer attractive to Sui. It was better to hide his strength. Huff, huff, huff. That majestic force became even stronger. It was as if it could topple mountains and overturn seas. However, this kind of suppression was nothing to Sui now. He rushed forward and passed several steps in an instant. The invisible suppressive force was all-pervasive, causing Su Yi's speed to be much slower than usual, but it was still able to stop his footsteps. Sure, Su, Jing Charan, Fu Dongxian, and the others are about to reach the second level of the Nirvana Dragon platform. Their speed has decreased a lot. It seems that the suppression is too strong. At this time, the surrounding crowd finally turned their attention to the first few people to step onto the Nirvana Dragon platform. Those 5 people were the most outstanding talents of the 3 first-class forces. They were far ahead of the rest. The others who were about to step onto the platform slowed down. Many of them were drenched in sweat, and their bodies were black. The terrifying force was wantonly attacking them, causing them to bear unimaginable pressure. Even the first level of the Nirvana Dragon platform was not a small challenge for these people. After such a long time, even Wu Jiuyo, who was the last to step onto the platform, had surpassed many people. "Look, Su Yi's speed is so fast." Right at this moment, someone exclaimed from below. Under their gaze, the Bawang sect youth leaped up like a gust of wind. The disciples of the 3 major forces were quickly left behind. The distance between him and Wu Jiuyo was getting closer and closer. It seems that Wu Jiuyo can't escape. He won't let him go after catching up. Someone gulped. He was actually worried for Wu Jiuyo. With Su Yi's speed and strength, he would definitely be merciless once he caught up with Wu Jiuyo. The people below could also tell that the youth was definitely not someone who was afraid of trouble. Looking at his attitude towards Wu Jiuyo's attack earlier, he really dared to kill him. In particular, Shang Wangqin and Shui Yuechan understood Sui better. That guy would definitely not let Wu Jiuyo off easily just because of the Blood Sun sect. "Let's see where you can run to now." Sui's cold voice rang out. Under the attack of the terrifying aura, he quickly caught up with Wu Jiuyo. Wu Jiuyo's back was instantly drenched in sweat when he heard those frosty words. Even if he was injured, he could still easily climb up a few levels of the Nirvana Dragon platform. Chapter 1087. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just as Sui finished speaking, a powerful aura burst out from his body. This aura was fierce and collided with the power of the Nirvana Dragon platform. A loud buzzing sound was heard, and the jade steps under his feet began to tremble violently. At the same time, the pressure on Sui increased. He slowly raised one hand, and Yuan Qi condensed between his fingers. It turned into a vast palm of light and slapped Wu Jiuyo's back. "Bastard!" Wu Jiuyo cursed under his breath when he felt the majestic power behind him. He didn't even bother to turn around to deal with it. After using his Yuan Qi to defend himself, he continued to charge forward. He didn't dare to stop at all. Boom! After a loud bang, his body was directly sent flying, and he fell on the jade steps above, like a dog chewing on feces. Wu Jiuyo rolled with all his might and got up again. He glanced at the first level of the Nirvana Dragon platform that was close at hand. He gritted his teeth and charged up with all his strength. Chila! At this moment, Sui launched another attack. It was ferocious and unstoppable. It was like a roaring dragon that bit at Wu Jiuyo frantically. He didn't even think about it and rolled on the ground. Only then did he manage to dodge such an attack. The suppressive force has become much stronger. He quickly stepped onto the first level of the Nirvana Dragon platform. He was no longer in a hurry to kill Wu Jiuyo. Wu Jiuyo had chosen to ascend this level. To Sui, it was like choosing a path of no return. Sui carefully sensed the power of the first level of the Nirvana Dragon platform and could feel that it was extraordinary. The suppressive force was pervasive. When he attacked, his attack power was weakened by a lot. And this was only the first level. Every level he ascended would be much stronger. Sui thought that if he were to stand on the 10th level, even he would have to endure a great amount of pressure. I'll deal with you first. After thinking for a while, Sui looked at Wu Jiuyo again. He leaped up and rushed to Wu Jiuyo's side in an instant. A terrifying attack was brewing in his hand. Sui didn't need to use his full strength to deal with Wu Jiuyo. He didn't even need to use a weapon. J latest Y/chapter/section above 0 with a light palm. Wu Jiuyo was once again sent flying with blood spurting out of his mouth. If not for the fact that Wu Jiuyo was of the same cultivation realm as Sui and that he was not weak and had a quick defense, Wu Jiuyo would have been killed by that palm. Sui, remember that Wu Jiuyo, will not let you off. Wu Jiuyo's hair was disheveled. He tried his best to prop up his heavily injured body from the ground and looked fiercely at Sui, his voice sinister. Sui's brows raised in response to this. He was just about to continue attacking and annihilate Wu Jiuyo when he saw Wu Jiuyo suddenly flip over and soar through the sky. He directly leaped down from the first level of the Nirvana Dragon arena, as if he was jumping off a cliff. This action immediately caused a burst of exclamations. Hundreds of people were stunned by this scene. Wu Jiuyo gave up the Nirvana Dragon platform. He was forced to this point by Sui. This matter will definitely cause a sensation in the entire Chaos region. The top expert of the younger generation of the Blood Sun sect has been forced into a desperate situation. Once he comes down from a Nirvana Dragon platform, there will be no second chance. Wu Jiuyo has no choice but to die or give up the Nirvana Dragon platform. What will Sui do? Will he come down from a Nirvana Dragon platform to kill Wu Jiuyo? The hundreds of disciples below were all filled with shock. Seeing Wu Jiuyo leap down, not a single one of them felt any regret. Their hearts were only filled with endless shock, shocked by the strength of the Overlord's sect youth. He actually escaped. Sui stood on the Nirvana Dragon platform and gradually frowned. He hadn't expected this outcome. He had also heard of the rules of the Nirvana Dragon platform. Once one stepped on it, there was no turning back. Otherwise, there would be no chance to go up the platform again. For example, if an expert reached the 5th level of the Nirvana Dragon platform and was defeated in a battle and sent down to the 4th level, then he could only stay on the 4th level and accept challenges from others. He wouldn't be able to step onto the 5th level, let alone the higher levels. This was the rule of the Nirvana Dragon platform. Now that Wu Jiuyo had given up on the 1st level, he had no chance to go up there. In other words, he had given up the Nirvana Dragon platform in order to survive. However, Wu Jiuyo was also gambling. He was betting that Sui wouldn't give up the Nirvana Dragon platform like him and go all out to kill him. Go up the platform. Sui didn't think much and turned to look at the higher levels. He didn't want to give up the Nirvana Dragon platform for Wu Jiuyo. The main point was that Yuan Xuan, Lin Donghao, and the others looked envious. It seemed that one could really obtain unimaginable benefits from going up there. Therefore, Sui naturally wanted to go up the platform and give it a try. Furthermore, his target was the highest point. Swish, swish, Sui's eyes became firm. He moved quickly and headed for the 2nd level of the Nirvana Dragon platform. As he climbed up the steps, the suppressive force became stronger and stronger. Sui had no choice but to use some Yuan Qi to resist. Wow, how can his speed be so fast? Under the amazed gazes of the hundreds of people below, Sui's speed was extremely fast. It didn't take long for him to reach the 2nd level of the Nirvana Dragon platform. Sure, Su, Qin Yuxing, and the others were about to step onto the 3rd floor. In comparison, Sui's speed was slightly faster than theirs. Below, there were finally people from the 3 first-rate forces who had reached the 1st level of a Nirvana Dragon platform. However, there were only a dozen of them, and each of them had a difficult time. The disciples of the second-rate forces have also started to ascend the platform. When such a situation occurred, Sang Ming from the Dark Yin Gate, Yin Shang Yuan from the Crimson Sun Sect, Ruan Zhua from the Jade Tripod Clan, Shang Wangxin from the Boundless Palace, Shui Weichan from the Purple Shadow Tower, and Wei Chan Tian from the Green Flame Sect also started to ascend the Nirvana Dragon platform. Behind them, many disciples from the other second-rate forces also followed. Their goal wasn't really to fight for the first level, but simply to test their strength and see if they could climb a few steps. When the terrifying invisible force attacked, many people's faces immediately swelled red. It was as if they were carrying a huge mountain on their backs, making it difficult for them to breathe. Some disciples who weren't very strong could only climb a few steps before they were seriously injured and vomited blood under the strong pressure. They had no choice but to retreat. Those who can step onto the Nirvana Dragon platform are the true experts. Many disciples from the third-rate forces had endless envy in their eyes. At the same time, they felt hot blood surging in their bodies. The benefits of the Nirvana Dragon platform were not only for themselves, but also for their own sect's disciples. This was something that many people yearned for. However, due to their lack of strength, they could only watch others obtain it. Time passed quickly. In the end, only a few dozen people were still climbing the Nirvana Dragon platform. Other than a dozen disciples from the second-rate forces, the rest were all young disciples from the first-rate forces. Even on the first level of the Nirvana Dragon platform, some people had already started a fight. They knew that they couldn't go any higher and could only fight for the first level at most. Hence, they stopped climbing and conserved their strength, hoping to take down the lowest level. Even the lowest level will face a terrifying challenge. It's not something that ordinary people can occupy. There were only 10 levels in the Nirvana Dragon platform. To a certain extent, the final occupants represented the 10 strongest people of the Chaos region of this generation. Therefore, even if it was the first level, only absolute experts could sit firmly on it. He has already reached the 5th level. His speed is too fast. I'm afraid it won't be long before He catches up with Shirsusu and Jing Chiron. Everyone looked over in shock. They saw the Bawang sect youth's figure moving like lightning. He walked on the jade steps as if he was walking on flat ground, with an indescribable ease. Not far in front of him, Qin Yusheng, Fu Dongxian, and the other 4 who were the first to reach the platform were already in sight. They were less than 100 steps away. However, there was a gap in strength between the 5 of them. They were Shirsusu, Qin Yusheng, Jing Chiron, Chao Yunfei, and Fu Dongxian from the front to the back. Among the 5, Shirsusu was the youngest, but her cultivation was the most powerful. She actually led everyone. In addition, Qin Yusheng was right behind her. From this, it could be seen that the strength of this generation of disciples from the Blue Cloud Palace was absolutely superior among the 3 first-rate forces. Of course, this time, Wu Jiuyo jumped down the Nirvana Dragon platform on his own. Otherwise, this order would inevitably change. Qin Yusheng has reached the 6th level. Hundreds of people looked over with shock in their eyes. He has caught up. He has surpassed Fu Dongxian and Chao Yunfei. Someone said in shock, the corners of his eyes twitching. Suyi's speed was really too fast. He was slower than the 5 at the beginning, but now he had begun to surpass 2 of them. It could only be said that his strength was much stronger than Chao Yunfei and Fu Dongxian. He will definitely reach the 10th level and compete with Qin Yusheng, Jing Chiron, and the others. Many disciples from the first and second-rate forces swallowed their saliva. They were deeply shocked by Yi. Based on the current situation, it was inevitable that Yi would reach the 10th floor. Everyone was looking forward to seeing Yi compete with the others. They wanted to see what kind of strength he had. Among the crowd, only one person's eyes were gloomy to the extreme. That was Wu Jiuyo. After he jumped down the Nirvana Dragon platform, no one paid attention to him. Wu Jiuyo went to a nearby place and sat cross-legged alone to slowly heal his injuries. He did not return to the crowd of the Blood Sun sect. Sui I Wu Jiuyo will definitely kill you. Wu Jiuyo's eyes were gloomy, and his teeth were about to shatter. He had the intention to kill Sui. In fact, he knew that with his strength, there was probably no chance of killing Sui. But he was not afraid because he had the Blood Sun sect behind him. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.